Hello, dear AI community beyond borders. A warm welcome to our flagship conference, the AI Trajectory 2025, that we've been actually organizing now for the 5th consecutive year. It is heartwarming to see you joining us from all over the globe. I feel honored and actually very privileged to host this remarkable gathering today. This event is not just a conference. It is a convergence of passion, innovation, and shared responsibility brought to life by the event dynamic of Swiss cognitive community, actually of all of you. But before I delve into our exciting conference, let me thank each of you for your dedication and engagement. Your enthusiasm fuels our mission, and it is because of your collective effort that Swiss Cognitive continues to lead the global dialogue on AI. As we reflect on the past year, 2024 stands out for a landmark year in the field of AI. Together, we've witnessed incredible advancements and faced pivotal challenges. AI has evolved from a tool into a vital part of how we work, innovate, and address global challenges. Today, we'll explore key insights shaping its trajectory, the 5 truths of AI, multimodal strategies, scaling for value, robust governance, hybrid cloud adoption, and data quality, and lay the foundation for responsible integration. Alongside this, AI governance and ethics ensures trust and sustainability, while adaptive leadership fosters human AI synergies. And emotional intelligence in decision-making is core. AI's role in driving sustainability is transformative, optimizing resources and reducing waste, while the democratization of AI through accessible and open source models empowers innovation and inclusion across industries. As we navigate landscape, let's ensure AI serves humanity with purpose and trust, moving beyond automation to true collaboration where humans and AI achieve transformative results. 2024 has marked a pivotal shift toward human-AI collaboration. We shift from a knowledge-based economy to a skill-based economy. To capitalize on these economic opportunities of the AI future, companies will have to learn to master the capability economy. We're facing a paradigm shift where knowledge is losing its value as a success factor. We're entering the era of the humanen Zukunftswirtschaft. And now, dear audience, let's dive into the agenda and put our experts into the spotlight, discussing where we are heading in the next year, focusing on our key points: investing in AI-driven innovation, embracing collaborative and co-innovation, and prioritizing practical AI integration. Now it is my great pleasure to start with our first interview. Dear audience, please join me in welcoming Michael Wade from IMD. Hi, dear Mike.
Hello, Delith. How are you?
Fine, fine. Very excited. I would love to introduce you quickly to our audience. So, Mike, you are a renowned author and professor specializing in AI, digital transformation, and innovation. With 10 books and over 100 articles to your name, you are a recognized thought leader in digital leadership. Elected to the Digital Shapers Hall of Fame in 2021, you continue to shape the global AI narrative through podcasts, publications, and award-winning works such as Hacking Digital and Digital Vortex. Dear Michael, it is an honor to have you here and bringing your insights to our audience. So in the next 30 minutes, we will talk about advancing AI innovation with the safety at the core. IMD's newly released AI safety clock has taken inspiration from the doomsday clock to create a clock from 11 p.m. to midnight, showing how close we are coming to uncontrolled artificial general intelligence, emphasizing the urgency of global collaboration, effective regulation, and vigilance to ensure safe AI advancements. Now, your mission is to evaluate and communicate these risks to the public policymakers and business leaders, helping ensure the safe development and use of AI technology. So before we dive into our interview, I would really like you to share some insights about this AI safety clock from the IMD that we have shared to our community a few newsletters ago.
Sure, I'd be very happy to do that. And the reason we created this clock is because there's just so much confusion out there about AI safety and AI risks. There's a ton of opinions being thrown around by different people, and so if you're just an observer and you kind of want to get a sense of what is the risk to me, what is the risk to my organization, what is the risk to humanity, it's very difficult to get a clear answer in a way that's easy to understand. So we decided to kind of take on the heavy lifting and do the analysis to really understand what the risk profile is. And we really looked at three different distinct elements of that risk. So the first one is the power and the strength of these models, of the AI models that are being developed today, and that's including, how powerful the chips are, the data that's being used, the size of the models, their speed, everything around sort of the technology behind these AI models. That's the first thing we looked at. The second thing we looked at is agentic AI. So the ability of these tools to be autonomous, so out of our control. I mean, if we can control them, well, that is less risky than if they're kind of, able to make their own decisions. And then the third thing we looked at was how closely they are embedded in the physical world. Can they impact or influence biological systems, political discourse, social networks, physical infrastructure like roads and power grids, and then finally, military uses of this technology. And so we looked at that, we crunched all the data, and we decided, and we did this, we launched this a couple of months ago, Dilith, and we came out at 29 minutes to midnight. Remember, it's from 11 to midnight, where midnight is uncontrolled AGI. So we're kind of just moving from the moderate risk zone into the high risk zone. But Dilith, I do have an update for you.
I'm super curious now.
We're constantly looking at the environment around AI safety and AI risk and evaluating whether we should be moving the clock. And sometimes we move the clock forwards closer to midnight, meaning that the risk factor goes up, and sometimes we move it the other way, meaning that the risk factor has gone down. But I'm here to tell you today, and this is the first time we've announced this. We'll announce it more comprehensively in the coming days. We're actually moving the clock 3 minutes closer to midnight. So it's going to be, instead of 29 minutes to midnight, it's going to be 26 minutes to midnight, because over the last 2 months since we launched the clock, there have been so many things that have happened. And most of those things, unfortunately, are making AI riskier rather than safer.
That's super interesting. And I think what is especially interesting to see the relation between the last 2 months, bringing it 3 minutes closer to midnight. On the other hand, when we talk about that, people say that if we focus too much on AI safety, that it's going to slow down innovation. And with that, sometimes also it may slow down the innovation for safety in AI. So what are your thoughts on this argument?
It's a strong argument that, if you put too much limits on AI, if you regulate it too heavily, that will inhibit innovation, and it could, stop some of the great things that this technology can provide to humanity. AI could cure disease, it could solve environmental problems. I mean, there's lots of things that it could do, and if we inhibit that through excessive legislation, then innovation may be slowed down. But I think as a counterpoint, we can look at other sectors. For example, the pharmaceutical sector. It's really inconceivable that a pharma company could, develop a new molecule, a new drug, or a new, medical device and just start, selling it to patients. It would be inconceivable for that to happen because of the risks. So we have checks and balances that these companies have to go through before they release these products to the market. And it's the same thing, with vehicles and airplanes and all kinds of other areas. We have to make sure with these powerful technologies that they're used in a safe and secure way. And the reality that is today is that really, an AI company can develop a new model and just release it. I mean, we saw it this week with Amazon releasing a portfolio of new AI, generative AI products under the Nova brand. I don't think they went through a very rigorous, safety process where the technology was analyzed for its safety. So I think the danger is that we're developing these technologies faster than our ability to control them. And I think that's can be dangerous. And so we should think about innovating for sure. We should innovate. We just need to do it in a safe and responsible way.
I mean, if the human being would be good, well, we wouldn't need even police. So unfortunately, I think we have to work much more on the emotional intelligence than on the artificial intelligence. But what should our organizations and our governments be doing differently then?
Yeah, this is a great question, because we want not just to look at problems, we want to look at solutions. And so I do think there are things that that our organizations and our governments can be doing. And maybe we start with organizations. Um, and I think that it could be as simple as joint governance. So when you have an AI team, which many companies have digital and AI teams, they at least have some collaboration with safety teams. Teams looking at ethics, safety, teams looking at sustainability. So you could have, some projects that they're working on together. They're benefiting from the input of each other. There could be joint KPIs and so forth. So, because I'm pretty sure that when generative AI technology was developed, there wasn't a whole lot of input from people talking about safety or people talking about environmental sustainability. Because if there were, then the technology would have been designed in a different way. So I think putting those groups together much more than have been done to this point, I think makes a lot of sense. From the government point of view, clearly we need guidelines, we need regulation. Self-regulation is probably not going to be strong enough, especially given the power of these technologies. So we need more rigorous cross-regional and cross-country legislation and guidelines to make sure that bad actors can't just move to a new location if they want to do something. So I think that's important. So there's a responsibility for governments, multinationally, nationally. There's a responsibility for industry associations, and finally, there's a responsibility for organizations themselves.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm just thinking of this discrepancy between taking risks on purpose because we're getting benefits out of it, especially when we look at medication, at drug design and stuff like that. So one thing, I mean, there is so much discussion about the existential risks that AI can bring to humanity, but some of them, I think, need to get into a certain relation between the risk and the benefit, the advantage. And sometimes I have the feeling that we're not doing certain things because of society in a big picture, and actually the individuals are suffering. It's just because we are kind of afraid of sharing certain data, although we would know that we could help a lot of people who suffer from diseases. So what do you think? Are all these risks really real, or some of them are like overblown?
Well, I think some of the doomsday scenarios and a killer robots, this is probably overblown. But if you look at what's happening in Silicon Valley recently over the last 13, 14 months, where you have groups of people concerned about AI safety, but also concerned about using this technology to benefit humanity. On the one side, of course, that was the original mission of OpenAI, and it's still on paper it is. And on the other side, the accelerators, the people who just say, we just want to go full steam ahead, no matter what. I think there's a big tension between those two, and the accelerationists are clearly winning. The blinders have not been put on, and the legislation is not being passed. So it's kind of acceleration. Let's go. Let's not slow down. Let's see what this technology can do. Um, and I think that's taking a lot of risk. It also, I think, takes focus away from maybe some of the more humanitarian benefits that this technology can provide, as it goes much more into the commercial domain. Now, I work at a business school, so I'm all for commerce, and I'm a free marketer. This is great, but I think that this technology is just so powerful, like nuclear, and it can be
Oh, yeah.
used for good. But it also has a dark side, and we just have to be much more aware of that dark side and prepare for the controlling of that.
Mhm. I just think we have definitely to be very much aware of it, but more of the humans, of the people misusing it than of the technology itself. We do have one question that I would like to read to you out of the chat. And can you elaborate on what happened in the past 2 months that increased the risk, saying that we actually had to move the clock 3 minutes? And if I may just say, and can you tell us what we must do in the next few weeks or months to perhaps shift it back 10 minutes?
I would love to be able to shift it back. Even 1 minute would be terrific. So it's a great question, because there's so many things have happened in the last 2 months since we originally released the clock. So here's a few things. There was legislation that in California, some of the listeners will remember this. It was strong legislation to help make AI more safe. That was vetoed by the governor of California. So that was definitely a setback, because of course that sets the tone for legislation elsewhere. If California can't regulate itself, good luck for other jurisdictions. We've seen a Nobel Prize in the last 2 months given to one of the so-called grandfathers of AI, Jeffrey Hinton, and in his speech, he spent most of the time talking about his concerns about AI safety. We've seen new models been released, of course, this week from Amazon. Also, NVIDIA has released its own large language model, and that's an open source model. And from a safety perspective, open source models have higher risk profile because they can be downloaded and used, by any of us, in ways that are less controllable than if it's a closed model controlled by a company. Of course, do you trust the companies? That's another discussion.
Oh.
Also, we've seen a renewed focus on agentic AI from Anthropic, from OpenAI, and others. So that's the AI becoming more autonomous. We've seen AI used over the last 2 months in warfare, both in Ukraine, in that conflict, and also in the Middle East. So there's been quite a few things. It's not just one thing that has led us to make this decision to change the position of the clock. There's a whole bunch of things, and the shadow, Delith, over all of this is the U.S. presidential election. And you could imagine what that administration has as a point of view on regulation, and it's particularly regulating AI safety.
Well, then I just hope that we, with all our strengths of our Swiss cognitive community, with all the people out there that are thinking for the better, that we can change this clock backwards. Mike, I feel like we could go on and on and on. There is really a lot to discover and to discuss. We will definitely share your clock whenever you have an update within our community in our newsletter. So thank you so much for being with us here today. And dear audience, reach out to Mike if you have any further questions, connect, and let's shape the future for a better together. Thanks a lot, Mike, and see you soon. Have a great festive season.
Thank you, and thank you for having me.
Thank you. Dear AI experts and enthusiasts around the world, it is a lot about responsibility. So now take the opportunity to engage, question, and collaborate. The chat is here for you to exchange on AI. Now we're coming to our first panel, and we will reflect on the 5 truths of AI for practical integration. This will be moderated by Marcus Danhel, who is one of our AI Navigator experts. Dear Marcus, it is my great pleasure to introduce you and your panel to our esteemed audience. Marcus, you are organizations like the New York Academy of Science. Amanda, it is a real privilege to have you here today. Now to you, Joanne. You're a passionate AI thought leader dedicated to shaping Africa's technological future. As an advocate for AI's transformative potential, you help organizations drive real-world impact through innovation. When you're not consulting or speaking, you're exploring how technology can create meaningful change. John, we are thrilled to have you on this panel with us today. Then we have James. James, you are the founder and managing director of the AI International Institute, a think tank advocating for sustainable AI for humanity. With over 38 years of experience, you've advised governments, CEOs, and organizations globally, a co-author of AI for Humanity and adjunct professor of SUD and AI Mega Center. Your expertise spans AI governance and innovation. James, it's an honor to have you with us here today too. Then another J. Thank you very much. Another name with J is Jared, who is here with us today. Jared, you are the Chief AI Officer of Surf.ai with over 30 years of experience leading AI teams at Fortune 50 companies. Now at the forefront of AI agentic systems, you drive innovation across agriculture, finance, and manufacturing. A visionary leader, you're dedicated to solving complex challenges and creating transformative solutions. Jared, it is great to welcome you on this inspiring panel. So now, Marcus, before we delve into the panel, you are a co-author of the 5 Truths of AI for Practical Integration that has been published lastly in our AI Navigator. So before that, I would like to hear your perspective. You are a subject matter experts and have a lot to share. So what are your perspective for 2025 about the 5 truths of AI?
Yeah, thank you, Dalit, and I hope you can hear me. Quick reconfirmation.
We do.
Yes, you can hear me. Yes, good. So yeah, thanks for the question, Dalit. And I think what I've described in the 5 truths of AI are the topics we are discussing in different shape or forms in all the engagements we are having, right? So depending on the industry, depending on the use case, the one or the other are more front and center. But looking into the future, I think what we will see is this how do we scale, or we will see more scale to value in terms of getting broad corporate-wide, organization-wide deployments of AI-infused use cases. And I'm not talking just about those little productivity gains we can get here and there, but really transformational processes which are enabled through AI. And if we look into this in a little bit more detail, I would say over the last 2 years, there was a lot of emphasis on exploring the technology, what AI can do, performance, getting better accurate answers. But there are 2 dimensions I would highlight then also as an introduction to the panelists. One is, how do we get to trustworthy AI? And the third element is, how do we make a business case out of it? So that is kind of scaling AI, which makes sense for the business on top of the performance, the technology performance we are expecting anyway from AI. So performance of AI, trustworthiness, and how to scale to value, how to make it cost effective. Those will be the kind of balance to find in 2025 and beyond. Back to you, Dalit.
Thanks a lot for sharing your perspective. I think it's also very valuable for all your panelists. So may I hand over to you, Marcus, Amanda, John, James, and Jared. The stage is yours.
So yes, I'm extremely thrilled being moderating this panel and having so interesting guests here from all different dimensions. So let me start, James. So we were just talking about how we are going to scale to value, right? And how do we get to that? So I've shared some of the viewpoints. So which ones intrigues you the most? Which is the one, you were, say, reflecting on it and say, like, that's the one going forward?
Hello? Is that for me?
Hear you. Yes, that's for you, James.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Yes, actually, I've been reading the paper that you published, and I've been thinking a lot because, as you all know, I just wrote a book called AI for Humanity. Inside there, I talk about the balancing. The keyword is balance between technology, commercialization, and governance. And so I look at the 5 truths that you talk about, and I kind of categorize that into the data, the hybrid cloud, and also the multiple model that I consider as technology. Then you talk about the so-called value creation through scaling and the governance as the 3 things that balance, right? So as I also, what intrigued me is that I think we are aligned in terms of the framework, okay, in terms of the big pictures. So I find it very exciting. It's a validation. At the same time, I realized that to strike a balance as an organization means that the CEO and the whole management team or the employee need to have what I call the wisdom of balancing, because balancing is about equilibrium, right? There's no right absolute way of doing it. So I think that is an intriguing point, saying that, wow, finally, while we are doing AI in the organization with your proposal and best practice of the 5 truths by IBM, we still have to go back our humanity's wisdom to figure out how to balance all this thing. So that is my takeaway. Yeah, I hope that is helpful to the audience.
Yeah, let's take this further. This kind of balance. So, Jared, looking into this, how to scale AI, what's your point of view to prioritize its kind of, AI integration in a way to align those strategic objectives corporations might have with the challenge of scalability and also, of course, the cost related to it. So the ROI question obviously comes up. So Jared, what do you want to share?
So it's a really good question, and I don't want to state the obvious, but that's probably where I'm going to go. So the key here is to start with clarity about what you're trying to achieve. And I see AI isn't magic; it's a tool, and like any tool, it works best when you know the problem you're trying to solve. So the first step is really making sure your AI initiatives are tied to your business objectives. Are you looking to cut costs or improve customer experience, drive revenue? So you want to be specific and make sure the leadership especially is on board with the goals. It should be coming from them. That's my biggest experience there. Now, the other thing is you want to take a phased approach, or it's one option. You start small, that's an option. Pilot projects or proofs of concept, that's what we hear about in the industry from many people, is that can help you can test the waters, you can see what works, and you can tweak what doesn't work. But many of the AI tools that have been around for quite some time don't require proofs of concept. They've already been proven. You just need to implement them and get the right team that can implement them appropriately for your business. But once you have a win under your belt, scaling becomes much more manageable. And you've already shown value because of that, which helps get the buy-in for the bigger rollout. But when it comes to ROI, you want to think beyond just dollars and cents. Sure, saving money, boosting revenue is important, but don't overlook things like better decision-making or improved employee satisfaction. Those are, the intangibles. And you want to track those results. There's all sorts of tools out there. Power BI, for example, I prefer using. Tableau. They're fantastic for showing progress and justifying your investments because people understand those kinds of tools. And finally, as you mentioned, you don't want to forget the scalability. Platforms like Azure, for example, because I'm a Microsoft guy, they make it easier to grow without breaking the bank if you do it appropriately. And last but not least, you want to invest in your people, because no matter how great your AI tools are, they're going to fall flat if your team doesn't know how to use them. So you want to build that talent and a culture that's excited about innovation, and you'll be well on your way.
So thanks, Jared. And I think you touched the role of people, which I believe, of course, will remain fundamentally important. So, Johan, what is your point of view? What role does human judgment play if we think about deploying AI systems? How to balance, how to make organizations balance this kind of different interests and interests also of people. Johan, what's your view?
Marcus, great question. Good to see everyone. What you've asked me now, and building on what James and Jared have just said, is probably one of the key questions my clients are constantly asking me. And we know that AI is rapidly advancing when we think of automated decisioning systems, especially on low-level repetitive tasks. It's so much better than humans. It's quicker, it's less inaccurate. But that human factor of years of experience, gut feel, I know my customers, I know my team. We are biased, we do make mistakes, of course, but so does the algorithms because we build them. And that balance between what only humans can do, especially because of experience, and what AI-related automation tools can do better, that is a difficult one. But I think as long as organizations don't think AI tools are the best things in sliced bread, let's just AI everything. That judgment, that ability for us to look a colleague or a client in the eyes and to have that gut feel and to show empathy and show understanding, I don't know when we will ever get to a place where AI can do that. But that's a balance that every year as this technology advances and better tools come to the market, we're going to have to keep on balancing as especially business leaders, Marcus.
Thanks for sharing this perspective. Quite interesting. Let's go to a different aspect where I would like to ask Amanda then on. In the 5 truths of AI, I'm talking also about we need to think multimodal. We need to think how we consume AI. So but there is an element we all, I think, can agree on. Then AI technologically is very resource intensive to use, and there's a lot of press around what you need to run big, large scale, large language models. How much power consumption they have. So Amanda, from your experience, what are some kind of more suitable, sustainable AI technologies you can think about in a more smart way without the need to completely overhaul everything we have built in the past? So what's your take on that one, Amanda?
Okay, thank you so much, Marcus. Can you hear me, please?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So I think one suitable way I have seen artificial intelligence technologies being deployed and effective is automation of coding and app modernization. I have seen leading organizations like, IBM, Tesla, who are using generative AI for application modernization and enterprise IT operations. Now, the positive thing about this approach is that it includes automating coding, deploying and scaling. For coding, for example, you see developers that can now impute a coding command as a straightforward English sentence through, a natural language interface, and also get automatically generated code. Now, when we use such generative AI with code capabilities, it has actually enabled a more hybrid cloud for cloud developers of all experience at all level to migrate and modernize legacy application code at an increased scale. When we say cloud developers are talking about people on the foundational level, intermediary and experts. So now these cloud developers, for instance, are also able to target new platforms with code consistency, fewer errors and speed. Another example I want to cite is cleaning up data with a more predictive maintenance. AI in this scenario has, it can be used for predictive maintenance when you get to analyze this data directly from machinery. This can easily help to identify problems and flag required maintenance. AI technologies has also been used to, improve mechanical efficiency and reduce carbon emission in engines in the automobile and aviation sector. So you can see that we can streamline these workflows to increase efficiency and reduce time-consuming tasks. Now, in the work that I do at STEMI, we've seen how we've been able to use AI to tailor educational materials to each individual student's need. Educators and trainers can use this artificial intelligence analytics to see where students might need help and attention. Then on the end user, we've seen how students were tempted to actually plagiarize their paper and homework. Now, these technologies has actually helped us to spot copied content. So in all, it can help in language translations and real-time transcription services to help non-native speakers understand project-based learning lessons.
Hey, thank you, Amanda. So fantastic use cases you've described, right? And I think my thinking around is, even if AI, it's a technology which is consuming a lot of resources, and of course we become more efficient on that. There is a lot of efficiency gains we can get with the right application of that technology. Modernizing applications, getting more insights in different industries to make overall improvements for our society. So let's switch gears to the governance aspect, the trustworthiness of AI, which is a very broad field, and you can talk hours for that. But let me start with the question to Johan here. Thinking ethical. So what are the key ethical considerations organizations should address when we think about integrating AI into operations?
Well, because like you said, hours needed. There's two aspects. There's that ancient saying that says, let's not just abide to the letter of the law, but also to the spirit of the law. And with that, I mean, We see more and more legislative frameworks. Obviously, from a privacy point of view, we've had GDPR and others for years. Just since August, the first phases of the EU's AI Act and many others happening around the world. So are we just ticking the boxes to make sure we're staying out of trouble ethically and from a legislative point of view? Or are we really just doing what is right? And often, and to really simplify it, I say the following: just because we can do it, should we do it? And that is, if you think of the data we have on our consumers and the hyper-personalization and the human behavioral science and the predicting, the power we have really. But coming from South Africa and from Africa and the developing world, Marcus, a big topic here for me is around the biases in our data sets. Are we really serving people who look like us, who act like us, who identify from a gender point of view like us? Or are we building platforms that will benefit people who are not like us, whom we don't like always and don't agree with? That for me is the spirit of the law. And that's why I often advocate that these initiatives should not just be driven by technologists. We absolutely need those smart technical people, but we need the business team, human resources, the ethicists, the philosophers, the legal team, to make sure that we build systems that help other people. For me, that's the bottom line of ethics. We can stay out of trouble from a legal point of view and still be unethical. And I think that's something we're going to probably have to grapple with constantly into the future, Marcus.
Okay, a very interesting thought, right? So let's continue on that, Jared. Ethical considerations in organizations, and Johan touched it a little bit. There are regulations. There is upcoming, more regulations, evolving regulations, compliance questions. So what does this mean? And maybe I expand on that. Is this a risk which is inhibiting innovation, or is this an opportunity to go forward? So, Jared, what's your view?
So yes, ethics it's such an important part of AI integration. And to really echo what Johan just said, it's not just about what the technology can do, it's about what it should do. And the first things organizations need to think about is bias. I know Johan and I are like-minded in this because listening what he just said, and we know that AI, it's only as good as the data that you feed it. And if that data is biased, the results will be too. So you need to perform regular bias audits, and diverse data sets can help mitigate this. The other one is transparency, which is another big one. People need to understand how AI decisions are being made, whether it's customers or your own internal team. Black box models might be very powerful, but they can also erode trust if no one knows how they work. Privacy is another cornerstone. Customers are becoming much more aware of how their data is used, and they expect organizations to handle it responsibly. So we need to build systems that prioritize privacy from the start. And on that note, accountability is crucial, because if something goes wrong, who's responsible? Make sure there's a clear answer to that question. And from a compliance perspective, you want to stay ahead of the game. So as you mentioned, regulations like GDPR and the CCPA and others that are evolving quickly, it's worth having an AI legal expert or compliance officer on hand to keep you in check. Which goes on to the next one. A good governance framework can make all the difference around that. So think of it as your ethical guardrail, keeping your projects aligned, your company aligned with both your values and the law. And at the end of the day, ethical AI isn't just about the right thing. It's good business. It builds trust, which is something money can't buy.
Right, absolutely. I'm 100% convinced that at the end, you need to trust what AI can deliver to really, scale it up and make it, for a positive impact. Positive impact. Let's go to the data side. And Amanda, maybe the question for you. We know the saying for a while, data is the new oil, right? And I'm not tired also in all communities say, look, you can only get impactful AI if you use good data, so to speak. So what's your point of view? How can organizations leverage data and data-driven strategies for practical AI integration from a business point of view, Amanda? What can you share here?
Okay, let me just borrow from Jared. data has no doubt become the lifeblood of success in businesses. We've seen how businesses are increasingly tilting and integrating to artificial intelligence because one key objective remains to unlock the potential of a data-driven and a more automated culture. So how we can leverage this for a more practical AI-driven approach will be for data to promote innovation while driving efficiency and market prediction. So I believe that, with a more practical, advanced algorithm and computing power, we are able to leverage data-driven strategies to provide highly personalized experiences for customers. This goes from, product recommendations to marketing messages, AI-tailored interactions based on individual preferences. We should also be able to optimize various business processes from supply chain logistics, savings, and improved efficiency. Business today collects a vast amount of data, but without artificial intelligence to process and analyze it, we find out that data often remains an untapped asset. So my perspective on this is we can actually optimize practical AI integration through detecting trends, correlations, and any anomalies in data, and also surfacing these insights that normally would go unnoticed. We can also optimize and analyze past data, predict future outcomes that can enable businesses to anticipate customer needs, optimize resources, and manage risk in a more proactive manner. In conclusion, at the end of the day, we realize that it's about accessing these needs, selecting the right tools and platforms that align to our customer needs, and how quality is our data, and refining these strategies on a periodic basis.
Thanks, Amanda. So I would go back to James now. He was listening a lot now to the different perspectives. So we touched, I think, that the scale to value, thinking about this kind of multi-hybrid, multi-model approach, AI governance, ethical aspects, data aspects. What would you add? What is it you would like to share with the audience? Anything you would emphasize on top? Where should we go beyond what we have discussed, James? What do you want to share?
Sure. In fact, ever since I was introduced to this panel, I've been reading the 5 Truths, right? So as I mentioned, I think the purpose of this kind of panel is to create new thought leadership beyond what we have, right? So now we have I call it the collective intelligence of all 5 of us here, right? So my first intriguing point I mentioned earlier is the wisdom of balance, right? Because in your 5 Truths, there's a balancing act of a collective intelligence of the organization. So what is my chain of thought, right? My chain of thought is, what other truth I need to know? Right? So then one of the things I came out with is the following. There's another 6th truth. The 6th truth is a word called VUCA, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. Why do I say that? Because if you look at the 5 truths that you have, the data is very volatile. It keeps changing, right? Basically. So that is the nature of the system, of the AI system we try to build. You need to understand that it's very VUCA. Because if you don't understand this particular nature, all the work you've done will fail. Because the nature of it is very VUCA in terms of the data. Maybe the hybrid cloud might be more stable. If it's built by IBM, maybe it's more stable. I don't have to worry about that so much. But then if you look at multiple models, if you're using a public model, it keeps changing every day, right? I'm sure Gemini is being trained. All the models are changing. I can imagine. Then governance, we talk about ethics. There's no right and wrong. Different culture, different system has different judgment. It's very ambiguous. And now you look at all the system, not just one model, multiple model, data changing, the model are changing. And at the same time, in terms of value, right? Value, business value, it varies depending on context you are in as well, right? So the VUCA nature is something we need to, the truth, the sixth truth is VUCA nature of the solution, right? So once you accept this VUCA nature, then the next question is, what is the next truth you need to know? The next truth is you need to integrate, which is what I talk about, the integrate between the people and the system. So the symbiosis become very important. So then I was thinking one concept I thought we want to bring into the table. How does the leader who are running this system make decision? They have to start thinking, okay, I'm dealing with 5 truths, the 6th truth right now. If I'm the leader or the CEO of the organization knowing this 6th truth, what do I need to do? I need to use AI to help me individually to be productive and to be smarter to figure out how to solve the 6th truth. So I call it the meta level, metacognition thinking, which I really believe in the next 5 to 10 years in the future, the organization itself needs to uplift itself in terms of meta level thinking. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to tackle all the problem at all because it's very VUCA. That's the 7th truth I like to talk about. Yeah.
Thanks, James. You talked about integrating people and systems. So let me put the question to Jared as a look into getting into kind of closing because we're only a couple of minutes left. So pitfalls, common pitfalls, Jared, you're seeing businesses are facing when attempting to integrate AI. How to deal with that. Also the uncertainty. James talked about that. How to mitigate risks here. So what is your experience, Jared? What do you want to give the audience as advice?
So this is a big one because there are definitely traps out there. One of the most common pitfalls is not having clear goals that are documented, that are communicated. And remember, communication is not one way. It has to be reflected back. And that's the biggest thing that people say, well, we've got our mandates up here. We have our principles defined. We know what the goals are. Did you actually communicate them effectively? So that's key. And I've seen companies dive into AI just because it's trendy. So everybody's doing it. There's a whole FOMO. We got to go do it. And they do it without really understanding what they want to achieve. And that's a recipe for wasted time and money. So again, start with clear, measurable objectives that are effectively communicated and stay on top of that. So another issue is underestimating your data needs. AI thrives on good data, and if you don't have enough or it's messy, your results won't be great. So you want to take the time up front to clean and organize your data. Trust me, it's worth it. I'm sure you all know that. And then there's over-reliance on the technology. AI is powerful, but it's not a silver bullet. It has to work alongside strong processes and people who know how to use it. And speaking of people, change management around that is critical. Teams can be resistant to all this new technology, especially when they're not in the AI space, and especially if they feel threatened by it. And again, that's where communication is key. You need to help them see AI as a tool to make their work better, not replace them, or to how they can grow into something greater. Finally, you want to measure your success. And I've seen projects fail simply because no one was thinking about how to track the ROI, because that's what leadership is going to be concerned about. And you want to set those metrics up early to measure your progress from the beginning so you can show the progress you're making. And if something isn't working, you can adjust it. You'll be able to measure it and you'll see the results from that. So again, you can start small. You can learn from your wins and losses. And don't hesitate to partner with experts out there. There's plenty of us who have been in the space a long time if you need some of the extra help. AI is complex, but with the right approach, the rewards far outweigh the risks.
Yeah, thanks, Jared. And let's continue on a little bit the people aspect here, maybe to Amanda. And another big topic, maybe as a closing question, is democratizing AI in a way to make it, utilizable, accessible in all regions of the world. So how do you think, Amanda, we can simplify and demystify some of the myths and misconceptions in AI to better get utilized in the business, particularly if we talk about what you call the global South? What is your point of view here, Amanda?
Okay. Yeah. So there's this there are a couple of misconceptions, but I'll just pick a few. There is a misconception of how AI probably replaces the interpretation of data. And just like Jared said, the reality is that artificial intelligence solutions heavily rely on high quality, well-curated data to deliver, meaningful insights. I think we should rather reward AI rather than misrepresent AI. Going forward, smart businesses need to prioritize, data quality and should rather ensure that AI models are fed with more accurate and relevant information to produce reliable results. Then another misconception is how, AI is complex and very cost intensive. On the contrary, and more accessible, in recent years. Today, we have seen how many AI solutions come with better user-friendly interfaces and require a minimal technical expertise. So this further debunks the notion of any kind of complexity. Then the final misconception is how AI is eliminating jobs and the power to work with a team of people. The market for AI as a tool is to simply enhance human potential and smart businesses. That's the fact. So there is no doubt that technological advancements often lead to job transformation rather than eliminating jobs. So AI is no exception. So while all of these specific tasks may have become automated, new roles and opportunities will arise instead, which is the application of human creativity, critical thinking, and emotional intelligence.
Okay, thanks, Amanda. So we talked in very short time about a lot of different aspects. I think this was very insightful. But let me finish, Johan, to you the question. You can get overwhelmed with all these kind of dimensions we talked. We introduced the 6 and 7 truths of AI. So it's complex, yeah, to cope with that. So what advice would you give? How can leaders stay informed about this evolving AI landscape? It will remain to be very dynamic, so they can ensure that their organizations remain competitive and responsible to the possibilities AI brings to them. So Johan.
Marcus, I love that question, and I will latch on to what Amanda said about job transformations. Gone are the days where you went to college or university to study, and then you did that same job for the next 30 or 40 years. We will probably do 5 or 6 different jobs in 5 or 6 different industries throughout our career. More so our children now growing up, going through tertiary education and the like. So all of us need to keep on studying, self-learning. There's one thing that you cannot automate, and that is laziness. You have to sit as I always say, sit your ass down on the chair and read, watch videos. I know it's difficult. We've got children, we've got school runs, we've got sports events. Life is more complex now than 20 years ago for all of us. But keep on reading. And even if you're not an expert or technical, you don't have to become a data scientist if you're a business leader. Look at the trends. Also use your common sense to decide which sources on YouTube and Udemy and other platforms are worthwhile, because some of it you can't trust. Keep on reading, keep on being hungry, keep on asking questions, attend events like this, network with people, bring your expertise, even if it's not AI, to the AI world, because you can understand it if you're hungry. Don't be lazy, stay hungry, and stay on top of how your own job and your company is transforming in this era of markets.
Thanks, Johan, and thanks to the whole panel providing these insights. So we have time for 1 or 2 questions from the audience, and I've just got one which I really like. So I'm not sure who wants to answer that. So feel free to volunteer. So the question is, if AI is a silver bullet, what or who would be or are the vampires?
What is the vampire? Is that the question? Who or
so
what?
If AI is a silver bullet, what or who are the vampires? So who wants to take that one?
I think I want to jump in. Let me say something. I think it's very easy for people to, if you have a hammer, everything is a nail. It's the same type of concept. However, the AI isn't just one kind of tool. It's a whole host of different types of things that are evolving that can be applicable to all sorts of different areas. So don't think of it as a silver bullet. Think of it as a ever expanding tool chest that is getting broader, more in depth, more detailed, and it can be applied virtually anywhere. Think of it that way.
I'd like to add a point here. If I understand the word vampire means and bad guy, right? Is that right? I think that's my understanding. I would say I think the biggest enemy of vampire is ourselves, human, because we human make decision. If we make bad decision with it, whether ethical decision or I think it's ourselves to be blamed. I think the technology is agnostic by itself, right? Then also human nature, right? We human, if we don't like each other, we can use AI to hurt each other as well for the wrong reason. So I think it could be a very powerful technology. It could be a super bullet, but it's ourselves who needs to look into a mirror and say that, hey, we are the one who is causing problem. Yeah. Hopefully that's a good enough answer for the audience.
Yeah, and I would add to that a little bit, maybe a different lens, but think about AI. You said a lot, but I always encourage people to learn about what the opportunities are. Don't neglect the progression. Don't stop or don't stop in fear and everything related to it. Try to understand it. Try to learn also, to Johan's point, right? And try to adopt going forward, because there will be a lot of things happen in the future. Good. Last question, because we need to get ready. Maybe one or two quick comments. How about AI in HR? And we touched a little bit on that, on discrimination. So it gets on the question on bias. Any comment on that? One or two, and then we need to finish.
My answer is straightforward. AI and HR, start with the top leader first. If the top leader doesn't get it, forget about all the transformation.
Just
anyone else?
From my side, look, yes, from a recruitment point of view, we've already seen a lot of issues around discriminatory and the biased data. But not just the bad side. If we think of hyper-personalization, how you can help your staff, think of internal training. I mean, learning and development, if you work in a big corporate, is it's the most boring thing you can ever do. Those courses that you're mandated to go through, because it's one size fits all, like the school years we've been through. But what if you don't have to change the content, but if you can customize the delivery, mind maps, videos, audiobooks to your people to train them. HR and finance are probably the two ripest areas to start with the AI and data initiative, in my view. But corporate training, I see you at IBM, Marcus. I'm not going to discriminate. When I was at PwC, oh my word, I wanted to bash my head against the table with corporate training.
Okay, good. So again, I thank you all for a very dense but very inspiring and informational panel. I think we grabbed a lot of different perspectives. Love to stay in touch with all of you. I hope it was useful for the audience. Dalit, I would like to hand it back over to you.
Indeed. I mean, it was just a great exchange about ethical responsibility, about actually the 6 truths of AI. James, thanks for the Wukong. I think it's very, very important. And well, I would have loved to discuss with you all together. So, dear audience, feel free to continue the chat. Together. And indeed, we will come out with the next AI Navigator, and we are more than happy to get more insights also for the newsletter. I think this is what thrives the Swiss cognitive community: exchange, challenge, have great questions. We actually have even more questions. We will try to come back with answers after the event. So, dear audience, feel free to continue the chat offline, get connected with our esteemed panelists. I think this is how we can remain connected. Marcus, Amanda, Joanne, James, and Jared, thank you very, very much for your incredible insights. Keep up the great work. and energy that you have. At least you gave me a lot of energy. I wish you all a wonderful festive season and looking forward to seeing you again in 2025.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.
Welcome. So, dear audience, now I'm very excited to bring you an award-winning case from the Swiss tourism industry, which shows trusted value through GenAI. And of course, I can only recommend to you to come to visit our beautiful country. Please welcome with me Michael Wegmüller and Christian Dernbach. Michael, you are the co-founder of Artifact and leading expert in experience. Previously at IBM Consulting, you delivered over 200 successful AI projects. Now, as chair of AI Experts Committee in SwissMem and other associations, you advocate for responsible AI adoption. Michael, we're excited to have you on stage with us. With you, we have Christian. Christian, you are a business development and data analytic expert with a PhD in strategic management and marketing. Your work is developing AI-powered business intelligence platforms, drives innovation in the leisure and tourism industry. With a strong foundation in market research and hospitality, you delivered strategic insights for practical applications. Christian and Michael, welcome to our stage. The next 30 minutes, Swiss time, it's yours. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Jalit. It's a big pleasure to be here with this big audience. And we have prepared a little something here for you. So we really would like to take you on a journey, an amazing journey that eventually has started with a very, very big achievement from our teams here. But hopefully we'll see how this work might change the way tourism works today, and hopefully as well be much beyond that to work with generative AI on structured data. So let's start with the epiphany point. It was 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, by mid of December, where Christian and we were pleased to be on stage to receive the Digital Innovation Award of the Year here in Switzerland. It has been a major milestone. On one hand side for Switzerland tourism, because these guys get a lot of marketing awards, but it is actually the first time that it's a technology award for a cool project, Heidi, that we're going to share today with you. And for Artifact, this is at the core of our strategy, running innovation services. So, Christian, take us back a year, because it's about 1 year ago when we started our journey together, talking about what we could do with generative AI on top of your data.
Yes, sure, I can do that. First of all, some words about our business. Switzerland Tourism is the national tourism organization from Switzerland. We are promoting Switzerland worldwide as a premium destination. For that, we are running as an umbrella strategy, a brand campaign, and have corporations within the whole tourism industry. So it is also part of our strategy to strengthen the innovative power of our partners so that we can promote attractive products. In the field of business development, we were asking and wondering how we can build up a robot or system where people can really access to our system in an easy way without having any barriers to talk to data. So they need trustworthy answer and they receive it immediately. And the result of our work is our chatbot Heidi. Here you can see the chatbot Heidi the first time, so people can access it in our industry really easy. And for us, it's really, really appealing and innovative because we used AI structured and generative AI for structured data. And as a result, our tourism specialists now have access directly to the information all we have in the data. So Michael, you see, I'm really thrilled and I'm really amazed from this product. Why don't you show us how Heidi works and what is the technical part of it?
Thank you very much, Christian. Yeah, I'd love to do that. So let's look a little bit on the capabilities and the way of working and the user experience that Heidi can give. And for that, I now have to put a second hat on, and I'm starting to become a tourism destination manager in Geneva. So you have to think about, I'm now responsible to actually market Geneva outside into the world for tourists to come in, to be interested, to join. So let's run through this scenario to give you a bit of an experience. Now, in old days, I was starting to think about on paper and so on and so forth. Now, in the new world, we have this digital assistant, Heidi, at our help. And we can ask Heidi things like, can you tell me more about the image of Geneva? Now, what Heidi does, it has access in the back to lots of data that Switzerland Tourism actually has crawled in many research and studies. They are refreshing their views from the tourism industry about every 3 years. And Heidi can now interact with this data, understands my prompt, understands my query that I have, and comes back with a visualization that is based on the data without any hallucination. So while this is great, now seeing here that apparently Geneva has a very good image around being a safe place to visit, it has also a good quality experience. It has for active holidays, seems to be a nice place. But now let's dive a little bit more into the details of the scenario. Now, as I'm the tourism destination manager in Geneva, and I'm planning to actually run a marketing campaign, probably in France next summer, I'm now very much interested, what are actually the image and what's the brand image of Geneva in France? So let's try this and let's continue our conversation here. Ask Heidi the same question. So if you look into the nearby France, what might be the image there? And yet again, Heidi has the capability to understand my prompt and run data analysis in the back and comes back with a neatly fitting answer telling me what might be in particular interest of people coming from France. Now, this seems okay, interesting, but now let's go one step further, because obviously as done normally in marketing, I need to target my marketing campaigns probably as well to specific personas. Now, Switzerland Tourism has developed quite extensively 6 persona types that, of course, we also explained to Heidi how these look like. And now, if I now can ask, looking into this data from France, keeping the context that I've already received for visiting Geneva, what are then the main personas that coming out? Going in that, Heidi comes back and gives me back the persona names, which are aligned to Switzerland Tourism, as said before, which gives me a bit more insights. And apparently it seems that there is a lot of personas that are resembling this persona of Chris. So if we take now a little bit further this talk about Chris, and now I probably would like to understand, in order to make a right promotional activity, from Chris, coming from France, visiting Geneva, what would like Chris actually to do while she or he, as it's a persona, would visit here? So what are Chris's main activities, Heidi? Now, let's do that. And Heidi has decided this time that to take a little bit more fancy graph in the analysis in the back, coming with a donut chart in it. And as you can see here, Chris, that's a representation how it might look like, but likes predominantly to walk around, to do historical sightseeings, going into museums. So yet again, we have to see that Heidi understands the full context of the conversation that we have been having with the system itself, and allows us to interact in natural language into our marketing scenario. Now, that's not all of it. Now let's move on. And for now, we have crawled on the data, on the structured data that Switzerland Tourism has researched. But as we all know, generative AI has also the capabilities to probably help on creativity part. And of course, we can now continue and say, based on the context provided, what might be now the right topic for a summer marketing campaign that we could run for Chris coming from France, visiting Geneva. And here it comes. The system now helps us with that query and moves over into the creative part, giving us some inspiration, some thoughts based on the context that we have queried and received before on in which direction we might want to go. Obviously, on top of that, as a little bit of a fun fact, we could also ask the system then, how might that look like? And this could be Chris enjoying her time here in Geneva, taking a nice holiday. Now, hopefully this scenario brought a little bit how the future work could be in the tourism industry and probably as well much beyond, leveraging generative AI, working with data. But Christian, maybe you want to take us a little bit through the challenges and the motivation you had on Switzerland Tourism to actually run this very innovative campaign. Over to you.
Yes, Michael, thank you. Very cool. I really love this tool always when I see it. But let me give you some more information why we did this. In the tourism industry, we are partnering with a really fragmented industry of small companies. For sure, they are all specialized and they have a lot of experience in their field. But this is often not enough, as like everywhere, things are getting more and more complicated, and the need of database decisions is rising more and more. The thing now is that we have the data in our house and we want to share it with our partners. But how shall we do that? And what is the best way to reduce the complexity for all of them? So at the moment, or until now, it needs a high level of manual support from our side to help our partners to access and to understand all our data. That was the motivation to look for an innovative business intelligence solution with an innovative Swiss partner who's able to handle these complex requirements. So in this case, we were really happy to join our forces with Artifact, who are very experienced in the field of generative AI. But this is not the only reason why we did this. There are really hard economic reasons for this. Perhaps you are familiar with the rule of 10 of error cost, which states that the cost of correction of an error increase exponentially the later it is recognized and corrected. In addition, 80% of these errors already appear in the planning of the project. So these errors are therefore complex and expensive. Heidi reduces these uncertainties in a simple and clever way because it supports our industry partners directly at the beginning of the process. In addition, the tool is able to support our partners in all further phases of the marketing process, and it combines reliable data queries with the creative elements of an LLM. So it's really cool because the partner can really trust on it in every phase they have. So Michael, why don't you show us more about Heidi and what makes it really special from the technical side?
Thank you very much, Christian. I love to do that. And it's really cool to see such GenAI work being all around the whole marketing and sales process, supporting the work of tourism destination managers here in the future. Now, we are all aware, and we have already heard before about the strengths and the weaknesses of AI and generative AI. So, i.e., the system might hallucinate, but on the other hand side, it can actually generate a lot of text, and it can help also in the interpretation of data it receives. So the strategy here really was that we take the strengths of the generative AI and try to replace the weaknesses, probably with more traditional software engineering approaches, generating truly a system that is having the power of Gen AI, but is avoiding to hallucinate, as the decisions made by the tourism destination manager have to be bulletproof in this. So in that sense, we really use language capabilities of the Gen AI. And in this sense, just to give you the secret spot here, it doesn't generate answers, but it generates code. And the code that it generates mainly is SQL, SQL statements, and of course then as well Python for the data analysis and as well for the visualizations it does on top. So let us look a little bit in the details of Heidi. So Heidi underneath is obviously a GPT-based system or a large language model-based system. It doesn't necessarily need to be GPT. In this case, it's GPT-4o that we have empowered Heidi with. And now Heidi interacts in multiple steps, and that I think is really the magic behind it. It interacts in multiple steps individually in order to resolve the user's request. So starting with the user request, it actually interprets and tries to understand what actually the user is looking for. In the back, you have to think about that we have invested heavily in the semantic layer of the data sets that Switzerland Tourism has available. On the data sets, there's multiple data sets like hotel overnight stay, like the tourism monitor here in Switzerland, the brand equity monitor, the personas, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of data sets, a lot of databases that we have connected to Heidi and explained through a very extensive semantic layer on what data is available and how is that structured. Now we are using this semantic layer in one way or another as a retrieval augmented generation system input, so that Heidi or the large language model in the back can actually resolve the user question in a SQL statement. And that's basically the next step. So it realizes what would be the right SQL statement based on the semantic layer that we have on top, and then executes it. The results are queried. There is also quality checks that are being done. So to make sure that the SQL statement is correct, there is some healing activities on top that we put in. But let's assume it run through, and we have now the data extracted from the system stored in a temporary database. Now, the second step happens, and Heidi goes back to the user request and starts to understand what analysis do I need to do. So it tries to understand better which insights does it need to get out, and it starts to form Python scripts in order to work on top of the temporarily stored data to generate information and knowledge and insights. And that's the second step. And as a third step, it again goes back to the user prompt and starts to interpret what might be the result looking like, and then decides what is the visualization type that it wants to use in order to give back an answer to the user. Yeah, and so that happens. And last but not least, all the information is pulled together. And here again, we can use Heidi as a system or the large language model in order to help us generating some nice words around the information and the context it had queried. And that is what you have seen before in the demonstration, being then exposed back to the user. So Christian, let us take us quickly through the key takeaways of this fantastic project.
Yes, for sure, I can do that. For us, it's really the beginning of a journey. We started with AI and we will not stop going this way. It is used, if AI is used in the right way, it really has the potential to support our industry. It gives the industry an easy and reliable intuitive access to the data and information that they can really trust on it and build up their own business processes and decision on our data, and we can join our forces more and more close with the industry partners. But the journey has just started. We already have more ideas how we can continue this way with our external partners, but also through the integration of such functions, and we have it here now in Heidi, in our management system informations and other BI functionalities that we are running in-house. So coming to an end, we do not have time for everything. In a way, don't hesitate. That's the message. The journey of AI has just begun. And we as a National Tourism Board, we are really, of course, happy that this journey that we can present here starts and ends in Switzerland. So thank you for your interest, for joining this session. Stay energized for Artifact, for AI, and also for Switzerland. Thank you very much.
Thank you, especially stay energized for Switzerland. What a great, yeah, sure. I mean, you know, at least something we can say. I would say Switzerland is definitely a great country to visit. And I would really ask, dear audience, whenever you have the plan to come, on one hand, plan with and let us know. Andy and I will be more than happy to meet you in person in Switzerland. So thank you, Michael and Christian. I think it's a great case to show a straightforward technological implementation of GenAI with a ROI. So it was great listening to you. Thanks a lot again, and have a great festive season. Enjoy Switzerland and the mountains. Perhaps over Christmas you will meet on the slope. Bye.
Thank you.
So, with almost halfway through our conference, we arrived now to our next expert panel discussion focused on embracing collaboration and co-innovation. Dear audience, please welcome with me our moderator of this insightful panel, Valeria Sadovsky. Valeria, you are a technological strategist at Microsoft with over 15 years of experience in emerging technology and digital transformation. Recognized as a 23 University of Auckland 40 under 40 honoree, you specialized in decision intelligence and responsible AI ethics. Your work bridges AI with human impact, promoting equity and innovation. Valeria, it is a great privilege to have you here today moderating this panel. Together with you on your panel, I'm excited to introduce you to our dear friend, Alexandra. Actually, Andy and I have a very special history together with Alexandra. The first time we met and discussed about the impact of AI was actually back in 2018 in a very, very small wooden church. It was super cold, in a very, very super small mountain village in Switzerland, together with 34 other global AI experts. Since then, we're collaborating and enjoying a great friendship. So Alexandra, great to have you here. You are Vice Rector for Innovation and AI at Kosmits University and Senior Research Advisor at Howard University, a former MIT visiting fellow. You are leading AI experts and, sorry, that was too fast. You are a leading AI expert and keynote speaker advising businesses and AI's growth potential and education and the public impact. Alexandra, I'm super happy to have you again with us on stage.
Very happy to.
Anita, thank you. Anita, you are a healthcare and technological leader at IBM X, using machine learning, generative AI and quantum computing to drive innovation in Europe's healthcare system. With a background in surgery, you bridge medicine and technology, nutrition startups in telemedicine and vision AI. Anita, we're thrilled to have you joining us today. Janet, you are a leading voice in AI governance and literacy with over 15 years of experience in technology and policy advocacy. As a founder of Act AI Now, you help organizations build AI frameworks for compliance and future success. Janet, also with you, it's a great privilege to welcoming you here on stage. I'm sorry, I'm starting to have like a very dry mouth. Last but not least on this panel, we have our dear friend Brett, and it's great to having you back again. Brett, you are PwC's US generative AI leader, transforming industries by integrating AI into business strategies. With expertise in AI-driven solutions, you shape innovation across sectors, fostering growth and operational excellence. Brett, we are super excited to have you on stage again today. Valeria, Alexandra, Anita, Janet, and Brett, the stage for the next 30 minutes is yours.
Perfect. Thank you, Dallas, so much for the introduction. I'm extremely excited to be here. Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. We have a fantastic group of panelists today representing education, healthcare, consulting, and tech. Who else you can ask for? Well, start with the theme. There is no doubt that collaboration and partnership are beneficial for both individuals and organizations. We don't have a question about it. The AI journey itself is not a solo journey. It's always in partnership. So partnership and co-innovation are the keys to unlocking AI full potential. And today we will explore how collaboration is reshaping the AI landscape. To set the stage, let's delve into human-AI collaboration, a foundational theme in making AI work for people, organization, and society. And this is the most discussed theme. Alexandra, let me start with you today. You've done extensive work in advancing the concept of human-centered AI. How do you envision us moving beyond this concept, human in the loop, that we focus on, and how we can truly achieve real human-AI collaboration?
Well, thank you so much. And thank you obviously to the whole team for having me here. I will start perhaps with a thing that is slightly counterintuitive, at least for me. I don't know if all of you have heard about a recent study in the US where it actually turned out that collaboration between humans and AI is not so fruitful as we expected. I'm talking about the study on doctors, where it turned out that actually full automation seems to work better than collaboration. But I think we're still kind of exploring why exactly that happened and to what extent that's domain specific, because exactly like you said, I think we do agree that in the majority of sectors, what we will be dealing with is collaboration, right, with artificial intelligence, and there will be degrees of collaboration. There are probably tasks that can be more or less automated. There are tasks where we would consider AI as an assistant, and there are also tasks where we would consider it as a sparring partner even, or, you know, some sort of contributor. And that is still slightly blurry, right? So I think many of us have actually figured out that perhaps human in the loop is sort of not enough, that we need human supervision, but we also need human intervention and input, particularly for creative and strategic tasks. And actually what we've been doing together with my research team at Kosminski University and also at Harvard, looking at certain patterns of work automation, was to take into consideration two things. One is indeed the types of tasks that you are engaging in. be it a routine task, a creative task, a strategic task. And over there, you can kind of move to what extent you want AI intervention and where human agency is needed. And I think in many professions, we will need this sort of surveying or figuring out, how much of an AI intervention we want and how do we see this collaborative pattern. But another thing that we have done was actually, and that I think is already human-centric artificial intelligence, was to take a look at different personalities. We've been using tests like the Big Five personality test, and it turned out, for instance, that people who are more extrovert have completely different patterns of collaboration with AI than people who are neurotic, and people who are extremely diligent also work with artificial intelligence very differently from people who are very open, say. And that to us, did indeed shed some light on the potential of collaboration in the future, and that there are many factors that we should be considering. One is the type of sector, the type of job. The other one is the type of tasks. And yet another one is ourselves, because this technology is very flexible and we are very different. And perhaps, if we recognize what we want, what is our pace of work, we can actually have the type of assistant, sparring partner, or companion that we would indeed, welcome most. So that for me sort of is already one step ahead towards this human-centric approach, where it's a tool for humans, really, that humans mostly should be benefiting from.
Wow, Alexandra, thank you so much for sharing with us, especially the research. And it's extremely interesting to see how different people use AI differently. But coming back to your comment in regards that AI as collaboration is still a blurry concept, Brett, I just want to hear from your perspective. Quite often in the business environment, organization environment, we often face a perception that people still associate AI with chatbots, co-pilots, and automation, no matter what. And even from my background as well, as everyone thinks it's like a co-pilot things. How do you think we can help individuals to move beyond that, and organization as well, and business leaders, so they can actually fully start leveraging AI potential?
Well, I think Alexandra touched on it a lot, which is the different ways that we individually think about and relate to AI. And this is the largest change management in our lifetime. And we're now interacting with AI, collaborating with AI, and not everyone at the same pace and not everyone in the same way. I think it's perfectly fine that a lot of people might use it as a chatbot the same way they might use it as effectively a simple Google search. Gets them a little bit smarter on a thing. But what the problem is they're not taking advantage of the unique characteristics of AI. The more that you understand it and the more you appreciate it, you see it as a very, very deeply intelligent thing with a tremendous scale and speed. But it's an alien way of thinking. It's not exactly the way we think. So if you try to personify it too much and expect it to be just like us, you'll always be frustrated. If you think of it as only a chatbot, you'll be undervaluing what it can do. What you have to do is challenge it as this unique personality, this unique style, this unique way of thinking, and take full advantage of what it can do. The simple thing is people will interact with once, ask a question, get an answer, and say, oh, that answer was wrong, and move on. Or that answer is fine, and copy and paste it in. But in reality, and I think, Alexandra, you talked about that sparring partner, thinking of it as this incredible source of knowledge with no accountability, no understanding, but actually tremendous ability to connect wide ranges of thoughts. Challenge it. Ask it this, ask it why it thinks this, ask it the implications of that, ask it other things we could consider. Really challenge it to take advantage of that full depth of knowledge. And when you're working with somebody, I think all of us have experienced this, when you work with smart people, it brings out the very best in you. You have to appreciate that this is smart in ways that are different than us, but really, really smart. And so if you do that, you can allow it to bring out the best in you, to unlock those thoughts and those things that are blocked. The simplest thing is to consider that whatever you ask it, it will not answer with the same bias and constraints that we have as individuals. The reason that study about people and AI not be performing as well as AI alone was because people were introducing bias, their own constraints. So you have to be able to think in a little bit more of an unconstrained way, or allow AI to do that, and then to listen to its input, to really embrace it, and then decide for yourself what is valuable. And I see people going through this journey in very, very different ways.
That's interesting. Thank you, Brett. I also can confirm from my experience, I think it makes me definitely a better person and removes the biases and makes me look smarter sometimes. However, let's move on. Anita, I know that at IBM you work with lots of partnerships as well, and you have lots of interesting example and use cases on how AI in collaboration with a human can bring the potential to the society and the people. Could you please kind of elaborate on that and share with us?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the role that I have within IBM iX is really focused on chatbots. Coincidental that we talk about this, but I just see such a benefit for this, especially because, you know, I studied medicine. Not understanding your patient is probably the most awful thing that you can imagine. Here in Berlin, I mean, the second language is what, Arabic and Russian, and all of these like bridges that you can close with a chatbot. Digital patient education, helping, you know, the patient really understand what's going on, empowering him in his diagnosis or treatment. So for me, this whole, if we only look, of course we do as in IBM so much more with AI, but I like this chatbot because it's very grabbable for people. It's very easy to implement. It's quite cheap to implement compared to a lot of other AI tools. And if you then look, for example, in hospitals, when we had like, I think it was Saarbrücken clinic with tumor resection, for example, when a patient is completely aware of what the surgery would look like and what he needs to be aware of coming out of the surgery, we had like a 90% reduction in waiting times in hospitals, or that patients wouldn't cancel last minute, that they actually understood what does it mean to be sober going into a surgery. Because we had a patient like smoking a joint because he was so nervous for this surgery, of course. But all of these things, like what is very clearly for me, of course, you go sober means no drinking water, no nothing. But these things are leveraged and help patients really understand what's going on. We also built like this project Validate, it's called, with Horizon 2020. A tool for young neurologists to get closer or quicker to the diagnosis of stroke. And we did this, for example, with Israel, a German hospital, a Spanish hospital. And in the ways of working for doctors there is also quite different. Or you just graduate as a neurologist and you have no clue what's going on. You're completely overwhelmed. And now you have to give for your, 30 years old, and you have to say and be perfect and analyze the perfect stroke and what you inject first. And so, I mean, we're building a lot of really cool tools to empower doctors as well as save time in hospitals and empower patients.
That's great, Anita. Thank you so much for sharing your experience with us and sharing the use cases. Now I want to dive into the actual theme of today's discussion is a partnership, and as we mentioned, it's a key driver of AI innovation. But I want to open up this discussion of partnership across the borders. And Janet, I know as someone is deeply involved in fostering innovation and ecosystems across different regions, what advice would you give to startups? Because startups are actually the one who is looking for partnership with the big organizations, the governments, institutions, and enterprises. How do you see partnership between those business units and organizations, and what advice would you give to them?
Thank you very much for touching upon this very important aspect. I think currently and nowadays, I think the big elephant in the room is AI regulation and governance. I think probably most investors and partners are thinking about this, and most startups also. So my advice to them would be to look at their product and to assess themselves under the regulation, in particular under the Artificial Intelligence Act, and use this actually not as a hindrance, but as a strength to position themselves as first movers, as have done their homework, as trustworthy design, as knowing their business, because I think this can give them actually a competitive advantage to other startups that are not so clear on this topic or do not address this, because we see from institutional partners like innovation hubs, like funding agencies, like corporate partners, but also hopefully like sandbox providers. This is something they look at very deeply. So addressing this, but also actively looking to engage in those programs. We see that the topic of AI is, of course, on the agenda very high, and there's a lot of development going on now to foster innovation, to support innovation and the ecosystem. So also having a look at on all the programs and sandboxes that are hopefully being created, and also AI factories to gain access to infrastructure, because we know AI training those models, developing those products and services requires compute capacity. So those are all topics that are being tackled by different stakeholders on the national levels, on the European levels. So currently, it's a very dynamic times for startups, but also for the other stakeholders, and to keep that on the lookout. And I would like to bring up one more aspect before closing off, because I think Alexandra, Brett, and also Anita touched upon this. I think it's very much also important to be mindful of the skills, because AI and GenAI is very much changing the way we communicate and collaborate. Of course, building with AI means we can create a world where our ideas can evolve faster than actually our limits. But I think this speed and this potential needs to be accompanied very much by skill building. So by understanding the technology, by understanding what we're dealing with from a builder perspective, so from the startups, but also from the investor perspective, and from everyone that is currently disrupted by AI, because we're seeing it unleashes tremendous entrepreneurial power. Before this talk, we talked about that in 30 minutes, you can create a marketing campaign, a website, very, very easily. It's disrupting the gig economy. So we're moving towards an agent economy, so even more collaboration. And in these disruptive times, I think it's very important also to foster our skills to work with these tools, but also to understand these tools, to fully harness the potential of the product services, but also of these collaborations together.
Thank you, Janet. Something I do want to get a perspective of, we talk about the use cases, the success, how important the partnership, but I also want to touch base on the complications of the partnerships and probably the issues. And I think, Alexandra, partnership often comes with issues around equity and ethics. How do you see this playing together in AI partnership? What strategies can different organizations can deploy to actually maintain partnership equitable and ethical as well? Because everyone is driving for success and everyone is trying to avoid some of the rules.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, Valeria, before I get into that, if I may, I would like to touch upon sort of, how different those types of collaborations with AI are, and which kind of are successful and which are not, because I have my own experience, a very recent one, of writing a book. It was my second book written with a language model, but first time around, it was just like a tiny support because the models were underdeveloped. Currently, however, as we all know, they're very developed. And within that already, I saw like examples of very successful collaboration and cases where sort of it was much less successful. And so together with my colleague, Tamila Triantoro, we actually developed 4 different assistants in 3 different models. So altogether, we had 12 collaborators working with us on our book. And certainly sort of the book did not generate itself. It was, a book about collaboration with AI. So it was sort of self-referential. But we had assistants there that were designed in different ways and had very different identities. One of them that was extremely successful is actually our critic. Now, talking back about like the sparring partner, that intellectual capacity to really help out and make something better. The critic was reading our chapters and would provide criticism that was actually very helpful. And I think in the end, made this book so much better than prior. And that was a very successful case. But then we also used another assistant, was supposed to be called like a AI style editor, because there were 2 authors. We wanted to make the book sort of similar and sounding in the same way, despite the fact that there were 2 contributors. And that has failed completely. So I think a very important thing, on that pathway towards collaboration, also regarding equity, is to kind of recognize the strengths of this technology for you specifically, which means also that the onboarding to this technology has to be very thorough. I think in organizations, when you think about scaling artificial intelligence, I think there's no way that this is a technology just for some of the employees or for some of the departments and not for others. It's actually a very transformative, like Brett said, technology that can be used in multiple different ways by different people, but only if you allow them to do that and experiment, with their own styles of using artificial intelligence, they will discover what works and what doesn't. And to me, that is equity, and that is very, very important to make sure that this is happening, because that discovery, to a large extent, to me, is self-discovery. Now, you've touched also upon the ethical component, and here I think, Jeanette mentioned the upcoming regulation in Europe. I think there are many aspects of that regulation that are helpful. And by that, I mean particularly everything revolving around transparency and avoiding chaos. I think, many people have been talking about how artificial intelligence is going to be a very scary thing because of a hostile takeover or singularity. But it turns out that 2024, our main problem is really deepfakes and simulations and the persuasiveness of these systems, the fact that they can be extremely persuasive and manipulate and provide disinformation. So I feel like this is very important to take that transparency stance into consideration and then, align with this regulation in that particular case. This is extremely important. And I think every company has to recognize that, we are collaborating with AI. We shouldn't be ashamed or afraid that we are collaborating with AI, but we are also doing that in a very transparent way. To me, that is an extremely important thing because there is a lot of chaos that we can sort of unravel if we misuse this technology, even if our intentions are sort of correct. I think this is a very big problem. And I see plenty of generated content everywhere that is probably not contributing to a better internet altogether and, enhancing our collective intelligence. So for me, that's kind of very important. There are plenty of other ways, although my take on this regulation is that I'm just hoping that this is not a regulation that will harm medium and small enterprises, because I think the bigger players will certainly, have a very good understanding of this regulation and how to navigate it. For the smaller ones, I feel that in Europe there's a bit of a fear that people do not know exactly what is it that it's okay to do and what is not okay with artificial intelligence. So for me, part of the ethical thing is certainly, to provide a better understanding. Now talking about Europe, about what is it that is fair and fine when it comes to exploring artificial intelligence and what is not. And I'm sure that there are plenty of other challenges like bias, etc., that we could discuss. But for me particularly, I think these two stand out.
Thank you, Alexandra. Thank you for providing your perspective. You touch base something on regarding to regulations. Partnership is also sometimes is a cross-border, and regulations are different across different regions. So I think, Anita, you have a global role, and I would like to get your experience how, what is the different partnerships deliver in each region? I know you work in Middle East. You also have a European experience. We have people here from the US as well. I just want to dive in and see what is the difference, how every region takes it on board.
Yeah, excellent question. I really love reading this book, Culture Map. So if you guys have a chance, absolutely read it, because there's so many. I mean, I grew up with a lot of languages. I speak like 10-ish languages. And still, I think culture and AI is such an interesting cross-section. And now recently, I've been to Abu Dhabi to the Expanse conference, and it was really interesting to see, from my personal experience also, that the region is so heavily focused on leveraging AI to, regulated by the government-led initiatives, spearheaded also by big investments from the government. And for example, the Mohammed bin Zayed University and TII institutions. So it was much more of, these collaborations were prioritized in sectors like healthcare and energy, smart cities, very strong emphasis on creating local talent and also getting more local international talent there for knowledge transfer, because it's a quite small country. And then when I look, for example, to another smaller country like Israel, which is known for startup nation, very innovative, entrepreneurial spirit, very much military backed up innovations. So also the topics that you talk about there are very different, like cutting edge technology, cybersecurity. People there start talking about like edge AI and things that we don't really talk about here in Germany, for example. And I always ask, like when I did a project in Israel, and also when I go there with my startups, it's like, how come you guys are so innovative and so fast? For somebody coming from the DACH region, where we're heavily regulated, And an Israeli said to me, I was quite shocked. They're like, we're so fast because we don't know if we exist next year. So as a survival, they're building and creating, and they have a really dynamic and fast-paced mentality around AI. And then when I look, for example, in Germany, where of course Germany is excellent at doing many things, like I think we are more of an industrial expertise, I guess, in AI, much more maybe focused on manufacturing, automotive. We're really good at, doing everything around compliance, really talking about ethics and AI, building the right regulations for long-term collaboration with research institutions like Fraunhofer or with startups together. So I think in my perfect world, if we get in Abu Dhabi, in Israel, and in Germany together, we have like a crazy powerhouse of completely different types of AIs that they're focused on, and just having all of this different thinking around how to use these tools. Because from my experience, sometimes in Germany, people are a little bit afraid to what is this AI thing? I'm scared. Like, and then at the same time, there's a bit of FOMO. I'm like, okay, did we miss the curve? Or like, are we still on time getting on the AI train with the rest? And so I don't know, for me, this is exactly why I work in such a big corporate. It's because I love, not having a border, pretty much, getting inspired by other countries, bringing tools or maybe things that didn't work in a smaller country, learning from it and not repeating it in Germany, for example, or bringing the regulation mindset that I have from Germany as an IBMer and bringing it into a market like in Abu Dhabi for them to learn from.
Thank you, Anita. It's inspiring as well. But I want to get a perspective from probably Brett, you from the US side. How would it be different, and what are the kind of key opportunities and challenges companies face in the US? And Jeanette, also from your perspective as well, if you can guys chip in.
So, in the US, the perspective on regulation is different than in Europe. I feel very fortunate to have a little bit more freedom from an AI perspective. That being said, every company we serve is global. We are a global world. And so recognizing how you address the differences, whether they're differences within the US, because there are different states with different regulations, as well as operating in Europe, operating in China, everywhere, they're very, very different rules. I think it comes down to, though, adapting the technology, and the rules are different, but people are people. And ultimately getting value from AI and transforming businesses comes down to people. The tech is getting easier. The regulations are at least clearly written. They'll continue to change. And we already have solutions that we adapt to the different regulations in different countries. Even if it's the same company that we're serving, we have to adapt to what technology and what capabilities and privacy and other things are able to be implemented. The people change of it is the hardest part. So preparing the workforce for AI, getting them access to tools, more knowledge, more comfort in using it to get past some of those hurdles. Like you, Anita, you mentioned some of the fear. Fear is a very real factor. 90% of the population is still very concerned and afraid, or just worried they don't understand it. So addressing that fear unlocks a lot of the potential value. And then focusing on the change management, because to get value from AI, the tech is getting easier every day. It's still hard, but it gets easier every day. The people side of it, we have to change the way people work, the way business processes operate, the way businesses are designed to take advantage of the power of AI and the judgment and accountability of people. And so preparing the workforce for that is the greatest thing we can do. And that workforce is different by culture and by country, and the regulations are different. So it's a significant leadership challenge and change management challenge.
Right. Janet, anything?
I very much agree with Brett that I think we're before very important leadership and change management disruption and challenge that is in the markets already. As you said, people are people, and the technology, this is a global phenomenon, despite we have different regulations. But I think kind of like we need to solve a little bit the fear of the technology by, exemplifying how the technology can create value, how people can use this to their benefits, also take away and address the fear of losing their workplace, for example, because the first time white collar industries, like the creative industry, my industry, the lawyers, are disrupted, right? And we have not built up those capacities of resilience like blue collar workers, for example, during the industrialization. So kind of like taking away that fear by creating awareness for the value, by assisting them in transition, upskilling, reskilling, and using the technology for their benefit. I think this is one important point. And bringing it back actually to our motto, it's all about collaboration. And I see this as a global challenge and also as a global opportunity. As Anita said, taking the best of all the ecosystems, learning from the drive, the impact, the opportunity-driven mindsets everywhere else, bringing together a little bit of regulatory mindset and consideration for ethical values. I think if we learn from everyone and the leaders and bring this together, we can probably create the best impact for our societies, for our economies, but also for our environment. So actually, I would like to stop on this note because I could go on for ages on the regulation. It's not so bad as everyone thinks, actually. It's far better than the media is talking about it. But I will stop here.
No, thank you, Janet. You mentioned something about the benefits. Of course, we all know that people are always the hardest component in any project. We can deal with money, we can deal with schedule, we can deal with technology getting cheaper, there are more technology, but people, changing the people mindset. But the question is, people are also turning away from AI from one perspective is because it's really difficult for them quantify and achieve real rate of return on investment on AI. And every organization struggles with that, every business leaders, because they cannot justify it. Good words in terms of it's just usable for our employees, it's saving the time, it doesn't help anymore because the tech's still expensive. So I do want to give it to the audience probably. How can an organization find this return? How can they quantify? Because just efficiency is not translated into dollars, and dollars becoming more and more expensive nowadays.
If I could, I think
yeah,
one
go
of the
ahead,
things
Brad,
that
because you are from consulting experience. You definitely have to do it on an everyday basis.
Yeah, I mean, I see ROI everywhere I look. I think the challenge is proving something can be better than doing it manually is not hard. That's a POC. But driving adoption and changing the way that work is done is really where the value comes in. So when you can do something at scale, and we do this all the time, we're doing it for ourselves and PwC, we do it with clients, change the way that software is developed or marketing content or job postings, but also drive the adoption of that new way of working through the existing organization, you get value realization. And I even see now so much more democratized ability to create AI solutions from people who actually do the work, not just central teams now, but now you can create custom GPTs and projects in Claude and various ways of making it so that end users can also create value, which is accelerating, I think, some of the returns. Some of these tools, they pay back in 3 weeks if you can save an hour a week. And saving an hour a week is not hard with AI. But I think recognizing it, measuring it, driving adoption, getting people comfortable is the hard part, because here, to your point, it is very much a people change thing. And in every organization, there's 10% of people who are diving in and 90% of people who are watching wondering, should I? Can I? How do I? And so helping pull them in and making the standard way of working and more native way of working is where people will start to realize and see the value.
If I may, I'd like to add something. So as a researcher, I'm interested, obviously, as I said prior, in collaborative AI, but also in organizational performance thanks to artificial intelligence. And I have to tell you, we're not the only ones who have carried out such studies, but in our research, the productivity gain was very spectacular, right? It was around 40%, and we were still using models that, are much better and more advanced right now, because the study, we carried it out like a year ago, right? So we're talking about a very big change, and I'm sure this productivity boost would be even larger. We also saw a very interesting satisfaction gain. So people who are working with AI were 60% more satisfied with their job and their output. So I think that together gives you a very good idea of what to expect in the future if this technology is really, introduced in the proper way, if we find the best use cases. Such studies are there. I also remember a study by Harvard Business School, another one, I think it was called the Jagged Frontier, and it talked about how particularly medium level, employees benefit greatly from artificial intelligence. The executives less so, because there are many decisions and there's lots of responsibility, but nonetheless, it was kind of similar to the numbers that I've just presented. So you see already quite a lot of evidence. And now I think a big question is to what do we translate this productivity? We see productivity gains, how to link that with ROI, but also how to link that with, our next plans. What is it that we want to do as humans, taking into account such productivity gains that we are seeing from this technology?
Thank you, Alexandra. I know we're running kind of closer to the time. I want to thank all the participants for such an insightful and engaging discussion. We've covered a wide range of topics such as human AI collaboration, scaling AI across the borders, building impact and partnership. Last minute, each of you, please, just a closing statement. What do you want to leave
I'm
our
super
audience with?
sorry,
What is your
honestly.
sort of idea?
I'm super sorry. I have to be very unhuman and jump in because we're running definitely out of time. It would be really great. But what I would love to share with you, because we have some very great questions in the chat, we will bring these questions into LinkedIn, tag you, because I think they're very relevant questions out of the audience, fears, uncertainty, and then we can also take this final quote from all of you. I would love to go on, but we have some others and people at the end would need to leave at 7, the session. So if I may, thanks a lot. I mean, you all just nailed it and there is so much more to discuss and I hope to see you again on stage discussing it, but especially once we are elaborating on the questions and see all your answers. So Valeria, it was a great moderation. Alexandra, Anita, Janet, and Brett, thanks for sharing your insights and your contribution. I wish you all a festive season with a lot of love within your most beloved one. Stay safe and especially healthy.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now, dear audience, it is my great pleasure to introduce you to José Pedro Almeida, with whom Andy and I are collaborating since almost the beginning of Swiss Cognitive's journey. José, you are globally recognized as one of the world's top chief AI strategists and a senior advisor to CEOs, governments, and top investors. You were named World leveraging over 560 billion data points to turn large incumbents into AI leaders. As a chief AI strategist, you've pioneered groundbreaking AI transformation, impacting over this 560 billion data points in healthcare. You won multiple awards, including Harvard Business School's competing in the Age of AI Award and Microsoft World Health Innovation Award. José, it is an honor having you here, sharing your valuable insights with our global AI community today. So let us jump straight into the topic. José Pedro, based on your 16 years of practical experience in leading AI and data transformation, tell us, why do you think companies need to rethink their competitive advantage in the new age of AI? And could you share some practical examples to illustrate your perspective, please?
Sure, and first of all, thanks for having me. I think the first thing people need to realize is that we are moving from an age where computers were merely tools for us, and we had to explicitly tell things to computers to execute actions, to an age where these models nowadays understand our world and can resonate on top of our world. And that is a tectonic shift in the way humans and machines interact with each other. And what is happening is that as we scale data and compute, these models are becoming better and better and better, to the point where a lot of emerging capabilities appear. They start to reason as we do. They start to program. They start to translate to any language, summarize any text. And so what this means is that we are gradually moving to a world where models are becoming indistinguishable from humans, which means that they can see as we see, they can hear as we hear, they can speak as we speak, and they will start to act for us, whether through voice or through a digital twin that looks just like me. So what does that mean to businesses? That means that the traditional way of doing things is coming to an end. That means that businesses need to completely rethink the way they operate today. And the best example that you have nowadays of an AI project in production that is showing this every day is Tesla. If you look at Tesla and what happened through the past decade, where they were using traditional AI models, like I did my whole career, trying to, in their case, identify pedestrians, stop signs, and all that. But the improvement was, 10, 15% every year. And those models were really dumb. They could only do one thing. And suddenly, they completely changed the architecture of the whole company so that a single neural network drives the car just by getting as an input videos and an output the commands that imitate human drivers. Now, what we are seeing since they released this early January is that the improvement in mid this year was 100x, and later this year it will be 1000x, so 1000x better than the past decade. So that shows you a lot what companies need to do to transform themselves, because if they don't start to see their operations as Tesla is doing with theirs, the digital divide that will be created will just be huge.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. If we're reflecting on this, we all know that large companies often face these great challenges in implementation and change. But how would you manage to, or how did you manage to transform some of this complex and big organization through AI?
Well, from my experience, I think the first thing is acknowledging that most CEOs and most executives underestimate how hard it is to do a broad-scale transformation in AI and data and all those areas. And so what happens is that they go to a conference, they see an AI consultancy company or startup, and they just want to buy AI. And that doesn't work that way. This is a long-term transformation. That transformation starts at the top with the full commitment of the executive team. And then you need to invest in the foundations. The first foundation is aligning the organization. And to align the organization, you need to have a member in your senior executive team, which we can call the Chief Data and AI Officer, which is basically someone that every day is thinking about how is he going to rewire the company to the age of AI. Every process, from marketing to customer service to sales, rethinking operations end to end, and influencing the other members of the executive team, the CFO, the CIO, the COO. All of those members will have to think in an AI-driven way. But the second angle of the organizational transformation is that the CEO needs to be all in on this. And what that means is that you need a bold stroke from the top. That is not an occasional pronouncement. This is a message that is being sent to the whole business every week, so that people understand that the core of the operation of that organization is going to be AI-driven, and that everyone needs to come along so that you have the road clear for the transformation. And then you also need to invest in changing your technological architecture and investing on those foundations. And what I mean by that is that you need to be aware that to do these transformations, you need to decouple data and IT, because they are not the same thing. The data and AI transformation runs separately from the IT transformation, which means that you need to build a digital representation of your business that is built sideways from all the complexity of the IT systems. But in that digital representation of the business, you will have a digital twin of your organization where you can run at an AI speed, where you can do all the experiments without injuring all the IT systems that are running. And I would argue that nowadays, that digital representation of the business needs not only to have structured data, but it needs to have unstructured data, because these AIs, they can run through video, through sound, through all the phone calls of your customers, you name it. But this digital representation also needs to have, besides the explicit knowledge, the implicit knowledge, which means all the guidelines that people follow and the procedures that people follow that are in their heads today they need to throw this into a Word document or any other type of document so that the AIs can learn how to imitate and to do those processes as well. And so all of that needs to be uploaded to this digital representation of the organization.
Absolutely, absolutely agree. Given your huge operational experience transforming healthcare organization with AI and what we've heard, what you just emphasized on, may I ask you to bring us a glimpse of how we can reimagine healthcare services with generative AI? Could you tell us what a day would look like? And I would like to read a question that actually came from the audience before that I think would fit you too. Let me just read it quickly. How do you believe we can we reduce, now here is regulation, and maximize AI benefits for our doctors? My top surgeon and specialist clients struggle with being drained from daily work requirements, regulations, insurance, people management, and only have 5 to 10 minutes per patient. So to me, it goes a little bit into the same, and I think this fits your expertise a lot.
No, for sure. And I think that is exactly where AI will bring a profound change to a sector that, by the way, besides doctors and nurses not having time for patients, we have lower staff after pandemic. Some global statistics say that we have 30% less staff than we had before. And by the way, this is an area where 80% of healthcare information is unstructured. So it's really hard for previous models, for traditional AI models, to make sense of that data. So they wouldn't be helpful to physicians. So what we are talking nowadays is that we have an entity that has a general understanding of our world. So it can act as we do, and it can speak as we do, and it can analyze information as we do. And so that entity, which I would call a digital species, basically will superstaff our workforce. And so you can imagine a world where we have all these armies of AI agents that, for instance, before a patient goes into a hospital, these agents can call the patient. They can see what happened between the previous episode and the current episode, ask some questions, prepare that visit up front. When the patient goes into the doctor's office, if it's an outpatient visit, that visit won't happen with the computer in his office, because you can have an AI listening to all that visits and registering the information and going back and forth using the systems of your organization and removing that burden from the physician. Or you can simply imagine, for instance, a patient that has a surgery and the surgeon is, operating, and in real time, an AI is looking at that surgery and it is crossing the video of that surgery with the clinical guidelines for that specific surgical procedure, and it is informing the surgeon, for instance, through an iPhone, of how he should proceed, or if he's doing, a certain cut in a certain angle that might get into an injury for that patient. All of those things will come to life. And what that means is that clinicians will be amplified like they've never been before.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think there is an additional angle coming into it. We are all getting older and older, and elderly care is being more and more central, especially also to us kids, even though we are already in a certain age already. If I'm just thinking about my mother that was over 70, carrying her own mother who was over 100 years old. So this remote care, the whole area of that, I think this is also a great chance for society. Where do you see the major AI trends for 2025 in healthcare, considering especially supporting the society?
Well, it's in this capability of scaling care. And we are seeing already some really good startups in the US where they have more than 68 million Americans with 2 or more chronic diseases, where you can basically have an agent that is prescribed by a doctor, like doctors prescribe medications today. They can prescribe these agents. They can be aligned with the best clinical guidelines. But the difference and the trend is that you will start seeing these agents having what I would call emotional intelligence. So they can call that patient, they can ask questions about his chronic disease, if he's taking his medication right, if he has any doubts regarding all the adverse events that can happen between the multiple drugs that those patients take, if he's taking the measurements of his blood pressure, all of that, but doing that in a human way, in a way that sounds like a human, because that patient with 80 years old, he will answer that call. And if on the other side is someone that sounds like a human, that person will be much more prone to change his behavior than simply a robot like we have nowadays calling, which obviously nobody cares about.
Right. Thanks. It is always such an inspiration talking to you, dear José Pedro. Many thanks for sharing your insights with all of us. And Andy and I personally are looking very much forward to working with you in next year again and shaping the AI landscape together, and especially driving the AI transformation cross industry, because you have such a broad experience. So, dear José Pedro, I wish you a wonderful festive season with your family. See you soon and goodbye.
Thanks for having me. Great to be with friends.
Thank you very much. Well, we arrived at our last panel discussion for today about investing in AI-driven innovation, which will be moderated by our dear friend and one of the oldest Swiss cognitive fellows, Jacques Ludic. Jacques Ludic, who inspires us since back even 2016. Dear Jacques, you are a globally acclaimed AI entrepreneur, author, and founder of multiple ventures, including Africa's first AI company, C-Sense Systems, as a CEO of Cortex AI Group and president of the Machine Learning Institute of Africa. You advance AI for societal impact and sustainable innovation. Jacques, a great thank you for moderating this expert panel as an expert subject matter expert yourself. I always love to listen to you. Thanks. Ingrid, you are a leader in AI, blockchain, and healthcare innovation with over 2 decades of experience as founder of the Institute of Science. Now, I think we have the wrong picture. I'm talking about Ingrid. Yes, hi. As founder of the Institute of Science, Entrepreneurship and Investments, you advise Fortune 500 companies and international organizations for AI ethics and sustainable tech strategies. Ingrid, it is a great pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for being with us. Then we do have Andreas. You are the founder and chief AI strategist at Intelligence Briefing and an international recognized AI thought leader. As the best-selling author of the AI Leadership Handbook and creator of LinkedIn Learning courses, you guide Fortune 500 leaders to turn AI hype into tangible outcomes. Andreas, it's also great to have you here. Super curious to listen to your insights. Maria.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you. Actually, the opportunity is all ours. It's like, to me, it's like mind-blowing. Maria, as an AI lead at SAP Switzerland, you focus on AI and sustainability, advising companies worldwide on emerging technology. With academic credentials in business economics and informatics, you also host a sustainability podcast and serve on advisory boards. Maria, I'm thrilled to have you here with us today. Thanks. Last but not least on this panel, we do have Alberto Giovanni. You are a Swiss-Italian executive and innovator. You are the Chief AI Officer of Health AI, a member of the World Economic Forum Global Future Councils and the OECD Expert Group on AI in Health. With a doctorate with medal from ETH Zurich, you have also served as faculty at the University of California, Santa Barbara, and as an executive director of the Intelligence and Predictive System Laboratory. Welcome, dear Alberto Giovanni. At least as long as I'm speaking the way I'm speaking, you know that I'm real and not an avatar. Well, dear Jacques, it is my great, yeah, you can laugh. Huh? After a while, I will send you my avatars. So, dear Jacques, it is my great pleasure. I will give it to your hands for the next 30 minutes, and I'm thrilled to listen to all your insights. See you.
Thank you, Dalit. It's an honor to be here. Very much looking forward. We've got an illustrious, brilliant panel here that's complementing one another with different perspectives, and so I'm very excited. So in this session, we are going to address the question, how can strategic investments in AI fuel innovation while navigating risks and regulations? So it's all about that balancing act. How do we get that balancing act? So some of the questions, initial questions, will be specifically about innovation. And so I will start talking about that. But then we're going to go into strategic investments. We're going to go into navigating risk and regulations. And we've got the right people on this panel to address these kind of questions. I'm also quite interested to hear the insights of the panelists. One of the businesses or entities that I'm involved in is an AI-driven sustainable technology venture capital fund of funds. So we are looking at innovation, also in smart technology, AI, sustainability is very, very important, but also navigating risk and regulations, all of those kind of things. So that's very, very interesting. So I'm gonna, without further ado, I'm gonna start, and I want to start with Maria. Maria, we talked about innovation. So you are an AI lead at SAP. So how are companies innovating with AI?
I think we need to differentiate how the process and how, so what are the ideas? So in terms of the process, first of all, it's always, you need to generate those ideas. So some companies, organize hackathons for their employees to come together and submit those cases. Others do workshops to brainstorm or create a roadmap, and others do trend radars. So I had actually a customer who just took the Gartner hype cycle and prototyped the top technologies from there. So there are different ways to come to the ideas. Then, of course, it's about estimating the value. What are the prerequisites? What data do I need to have in place? And in the end, it's about realization. So you can do it, for instance, within a hackathon, just to see if the idea works, or then move to implementation. So that's on the process. Then on the idea side, I think there is a huge variety of what companies exactly are doing, from creating chatbots to now predicting delivery delays, or drafting emails to customers, to also completely new business ideas. So recently I've seen Marriage GPT. It's the world's first digital afterlife service. So to create a digital version of yourself. So those ideas wouldn't have been possible just a couple of years ago. And I think it's very exciting to see those trends emerging.
That's brilliant. Yeah, no, fantastic. Ingrid, I want to get to you second. I know you've got a hard stop at 1:45. So I want to go focusing on strategic investments in AI. So what do you think are the key strategic considerations for investors that's accessing AI-driven innovation opportunities? First of all, I think that's the first part of the question. And then also just relate that to sectors with significant geopolitical and ethical implications as well. So that's the B part of the question. So how do you, what are the key strategic considerations, would you say?
Absolutely. Thank you for that great question. When I work with boards and C-suites, it seems that what they're very interested in, how can they design a digital strategy that's long-term sustainable? And they are asking us, how can we integrate AI into the fabric of the organization in a way that allows us to maximize not only revenue, but also make sure that we can sustain that long-term and do not interfere with our other operational performance metrics. So a lot of boards are struggling because they have many other priorities, and every lead says my priority needs to come first. And now AI has taken all the other strategic priorities by storm. So they're struggling to integrate, harmonize, orchestrate whatever they aim to do in their pure AI strategy with the other important either operational, financial, or technology strategies that they had or they aim to have. The second part that I see very frequently on the agenda and what they ask us to help with is how do you embed some of the guardrails for AI innovation, the risk management, into the fabric again of the AI innovative products and processes. So some organizations manage that by having already the risk governance embedded already in their innovation team, or they're taking a bottom-up approach and are training every associate that can promote a use case to understand how to assess risk. So you see both approaches. But from an investment perspective, that's what they want to know. Should they change their risk tolerance, their risk appetite, their risk governance models for AI and other emerging and frontier tech? And I always say, yes, you need to recalibrate, reorchestrate everything, the way you think about risk. The second part that I want to understand is how they can fold in cyber ethics into their digital strategy and AI strategy, because they always hear that one of the major deterrents to capture your ROI is if you do not understand how to embed cyber ethics early into your innovative processes or other ideas like Maria mentioned. And then the other part I think you alluded to, and I know we're going to touch on it much more later, is sustainability. So many organizations have pledged that they will meet the Paris Accord indicators. They want to align with the 2050. Some of them have hefty OPEX penalties. And so they try to understand how can this AI innovation strategy harmonize with their other goals that they set, and hopefully not, again, drop their performance on those. In terms of pure investments, we see, as you mentioned, a trifecta, I would say, public-private partnerships, triple partnerships between venture funds, like you said, funds of funds, family offices that can give the long-term runway, large consortiums. I just created one for the same reason, for women in deep tech investments, because there are not enough women in deep tech. So we see a lot of movement, tectonic shifts, mergers even within the investment ecosystem, where they're trying to understand how this would work. Last, and I don't want to take all the time, but what I also see is that we are creating novel financial instruments that have to be also matching the type of ultra agile speed of development we see with AI and other frontier technologies. So organizations, boards, and C-suites realize very quickly that traditional business models, traditional financing models, traditional management styles are absolutely not fitting the speed and the magnitude and the way we measure even AI deployments. So that's kind of the trend that I see. I don't know if that resonates with our audience, but that's a snapshot of what most boards are asking for help with. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. Sounds extremely relevant. Alberto, my first question to you, and maybe you should also define some of the terminology as well, but how can AI sandboxes balance innovation regulation? So we just talked about innovation and innovative solutions. Ingrid also touched on regulation. But now my question is not only how AI sandboxes can balance innovation regulation, but what roles should investors and innovators play in their success as well? So if you can maybe elaborate on AI sandboxes, the balance between innovation regulation, and then the role that investors and innovators can play in their success.
Absolutely. And by the way, this is one of my favorite topics, and certainly within the scope of what we're doing with the Health AI, the Global Agency for Responsible AI and Health, sandboxes, and to be more precise, building blueprints for effective regulatory and innovation sandboxes is a big priority. You know, sometimes when people think about innovation and regulation, they formulate or they frame the topic as a dilemma. To me, sometimes it can be a false dilemma, in the sense that the two things can go together quite nicely if you have regulations that are actually allowing for a fair play and enabling innovators, and so making it a playing field for innovators, and also proactively kind of advising innovators on doing the right things, right? So there's that proactive element, which is an important one of sandboxes. But so what are AI sandboxes? I mean, there is now half a decade or so of global experience in sandboxes for, if you will, frontier technologies. This idea of having sandboxes has been pioneered by the UK in the context of fintech, for instance, right? And then blockchain technologies and so on. Now I think it's the opportunity also for AI to benefit from sandboxes. To the best of my knowledge, there are now more than 100 sandboxes globally for AI. Some of them at the local level. I can take the example of the Canton of Zurich, then countries like Estonia, and also some international organizations are setting up sandboxes. In some cases, sandboxes are even prescribed by regulators. They are made, mandatory, like in the case of the European Union. But so, to put it simply a little bit, what are sandboxes? So they are controlled regulatory and also technical environment, or a combination of the two, where you can develop innovation without excessive pressure and with some good oversight and a proactive kind of help. So the idea is really that of acknowledging that artificial intelligence, and perhaps even more so for GenAI, is something that's very new, as new for everybody. And so it's a learning journey. It's a learning journey for policymakers, for regulators. It's a learning journey for innovators. So the idea is that to balance innovation and regulation effectively in that sense, you need to have, at the very least, clear frameworks, iterative regulation, so going back and forth and kind of adapting things and learning, and also very close stakeholder collaboration. Now, from the perspective of investors, there is a recognition that they are really key enablers, right, in this ecosystem of sandboxes. What are the three main roles that investors can play? The first one is that of pooling and providing resources by funding projects with sandboxes or prioritizing sandboxes internally and externally, allowing and empowering the innovators to experiment, validate, and refine the ideas. The second thing they can do is also equally important, is that of de-risking investments, because sandboxes are reducing uncertainty for investors and innovators. And then advocating also for certain standards, sometimes well beyond the regulatory kind of requirements and voluntary standards, and advocating for them and the best practices. Now, the role of innovators in the sandboxes is that of building trustworthy AI, benefiting from the services. Sometimes it's legal services, technical services, data sets as references, also engaging with the regulators and leveraging the positive feedback loop in learning.
Fantastic, fantastic. Andreas, I want to get to you. Alberto talked about GenAI as well, and we know that generative AI is like the new kid on the block in terms of the smart technology AI toolbox. So how should leaders approach GenAI in 2025? We're already done with 2024 almost. I'm not sure if there's going to be built by partnerships right now in December, but so I want a two-pronged question. So how should leaders approach it? Should they build by a partner? And then the second part of the question is, why are partnerships so important in the age of generative AI? Oh, you're in mute.
Thank you. I love that question, right? Things are moving so fast in the AI space. It even seems to me like generative AI is almost a little bit like yesterday's news, 23, 24. I think in 2025, we're going to see a lot more conversation, a lot more hands-on experience with something called AI agents, or agentic AI as the next evolution, right? If we can use generative AI and large language models to understand what we're saying and help us create some output and reason, now all of a sudden we can put these models in very central places to help us figure out, well, what is that customer actually asking about our product? Where are they stuck? Can I get information from our knowledge base, maintenance information for that lawnmower, and I send it to them directly? Maybe I do have a customer service agent in the loop that confirms that this is actually accurate before we send it off. But we see a lot more of that autonomy and that agency that is going towards AI. Now, from a leadership point of view, I think there are at least 2, 3 key parts that you need to be aware of. One, yes, there's a lot of opportunity when you look at technology. It's moving super, super fast. So I would encourage you to try out different frameworks, different products, and encourage your teams to use them as well. Because you can only learn when you're hands-on, not just from PowerPoints or from reading help documentation. So try to get hands-on, learn about that as quickly as possible while the field is still nascent and evolving. The second part around build by partner, to me, that depends. You already have a technology strategy in place in many, many cases. But what are the types of capabilities you're looking to enable? Is it something that's more aligned to your business functions? Is it more standardized or almost commoditized in a sense, right? Closing the books at the end of a quarter, pretty standard process across different industries. Do you really need to develop something from scratch there? Probably not. There are many vendors out there that offer AI, generative AI capabilities built into these products. My recommendation is always take a look at the products you already have a subscription for and see if there is AI available or embedded and you just don't know about it. Right? With an incremental investment, you can unlock these capabilities. You still need to do the change management around it, but you don't need to develop them from scratch. And then if it's more closer to your core business, see, do you have the data? What are the business cases? What are our top and bottom line goals that we can align initiatives to? How can we use AI to help us achieve our 12, 24, 36-month vision a lot faster and start there from the business perspective? And by the way, that's also one of the key premises that I talk about in the AI Leadership Handbook, how you can look at this really from a business and strategy point of view rather than technology. Technology is really an enabler. And coming back to leadership, I think there's a new role and a new aspect of leadership, and that is how can we bring our people along, those that are concerned that AI might be taking my job, or that are concerned, how do I actually use these tools? I see many, many great organizations on a global level invest in training and upskilling for their employees because they see the potential what this technology can enable. But on a leadership level, we also need to help guide our teams and provide them space to experiment, try out, and see how we bring our people along. So those would be, my recommendations for 2025. Agents, leadership evolves. Make sure that you bring your people along and put it into context.
Thanks, Andreas. That sounds like sound advice. Ingrid, Maria, I want to go to you, but I know there's a hard stop for Ingrid, so I just wanted to have a two-pronged question to her, then I'll get to you specifically. So Ingrid, I think when I think about one of the things that I talk about in my book as well, is some of the dangers with AI, and if you think about digital dictatorship, but also things like technology monopolization or cyber conflicts, all of these kind of things. Now, how can the principles of, say, deep tech diplomacy guide the international collaboration and also investment in AI technologies to ensure equitable benefits, and then also mitigate these risks around, say, technology monopolization and cyber conflicts, etc.? So if you can just talk about that, and then the B part of the question is, obviously there's going to be a regulation and things as well, but how do you see balancing innovation with regulation as well? So I want to talk to you about that as well.
I'll try to be brief, although they're big questions. But
yes.
In terms of deep tech diplomacy, I like to always say that we need to redefine the word diplomacy. Not everyone has to be a formal diplomat. And we noticed that technology companies have actually, from a GDP perspective, a lot of power now. When you compare the GDP and the economic influence and the societal influence and the diplomatic influence that technology companies can have, they're actually in the top 20 countries comparatively. So that's one. The second part is the way we envision, yes, the modern nouveau deep tech diplomacy is that you take also IP rights, cross-border investments into consideration, demonopolizing, as you mentioned, certain kind of niche domains, using deep tech to promote some of the digital equity. Already we mentioned some of us, there are other emerging technologies that are highly conducive in combination with AI to actually prepare us for the next quantum proof era. Blockchain is one of them. 5G, 6G, satellite internet, multi-cloud computing, digital twins, a lot of opportunities, but also risks. So I see deep tech diplomacy as a double-edged sword. If it's not done responsibly, it can actually lead to catastrophic consequences from national defense. We've seen a lot of the tech companies going on a shopping spree to buy nuclear power plants. Within a matter of 3 weeks, they bought 14 power plants, 18 power plants. That should signal to everyone how important deep tech diplomacy has to be. And then it is our role to embed, as we talked about, not only, like Alberto mentioned, regulatory frameworks early into these efforts, but also make sure that there is that digital equity and access by everyone, because otherwise everybody becomes a weak entry point for malicious actors. So we have to understand that deep tech diplomacy now can actually be decentralized as well, just like you were mentioning, Jacques. And everyone has to play a key role. It's not just formal diplomacy teams. And then the second part, in terms of regulatory, I think you mentioned it earlier in our conversations, collaboration, integrating frameworks. Right now, we're at the stage where everybody has put out amazing frameworks. Now we need to go to step 2, deploying those, helping teams translate a beautiful PDF that's 180 pages into daily workflows, and understanding how those beautiful frameworks can assist with safeguarding some of those dangers that you outlined for our audience. And I want to hear what Maria has to say. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ingrid. Maria, I actually want to ask you, why is it important to treat AI and even AI investments holistically, including aspects such as ethics?
Actually, Ingrid, it really plays well with what you've said. I think it's important to keep in mind that AI is not a technology topic. It is a business topic. In the end, it's about where do you apply it in your business, in your organization, not just data and architecture. And so then if it's impact on business, then it's impact on users. And this is where exactly the ethical aspects come into play. And I'm actually co-editing a book on the AI ethics, and it's amazing how many perspectives you can have here, how ethics varies across cultures and countries, how it comes into play with IP rights and art and music, or also what, there's been now the first AI CEO of a company. So how ethical it is, if AI starts managing people. And so I think it's the most important, to keep in line with the regulations. But then for creators of AI also to ensure that users have trust, ensure that AI is explainable, that if you make a prediction or make a suggestion, then the user knows it's been created by AI, what is the probability of this concrete model. And then in the end, also ensure this balance between cost and the impact, and cost not just in terms of the money, but also sustainability. And Ingrid, this is what you mentioned. No, it's focusing on the value. If you're developing new medicine with AI, if you're creating alternatives to plastics with AI, then of course the cost might be higher, but the impact and how many lives of the people we can touch with it is also so much higher. So it's always about this balance.
Absolutely. Alberto, I wanted, we talked about generative AI. Andreas talked quite a bit about that. So if you think about large language models, which is part of that Gen AI kind of stack, how will LLMs with advanced capabilities, we can make it more broader, the question, generative AI, reshape industries, and where are the best opportunities from your point of view?
I think large action models and agents are going to completely change the way we work, also the way the internet would look like, for good or bad, and certainly even kind of the way we think about technology in general, from APIs to processes. I think, let me start with one of the greatest challenges, because I think it's also one of the most interesting opportunities. It was mentioned before nicely by Maria. Explainability, right? It's an important thing. I mean, to build trust, and without trust, there is no adoption. So So that's an important thing. But that's also a bit kind of an open question from my side, in the sense that we will certainly apply AI to solve problems that are a bit kind of beyond perhaps the capacity of individuals, to kind of understand exactly the problem, let alone, of course, the solution. So I'm really excited about the potential opportunities of new forms of explainable AI, perhaps also connected with regulatory technologies. So beyond the domain-specific LLMs, beyond the agents, and also the super exciting combination of LLMs with also symbolic reasoning and causality and so on, I think there is a super nice opportunity when it comes to the application of new ways of reasoning and generating content, explaining content, and also validating and regulating it, leveraging AI. Another thing that I want to mention, because it's another exciting one, is that I think we are living for the very first time in a world where we have technologies that really potentially can help us work together in a better way. So rather than limiting ourselves to the brain of the, perhaps outstanding individual, we have the ability to kind of combine, right, and augment our intelligence with that of other human beings, and perhaps also up to a certain extent machines.
Absolutely. I think that's fascinating. I think there's some other things in the smart technology AI toolbox, complementary technique. You talked about neurosymbolic on the reasoning side. There's things like active inference, synthetic neural nets. There's so many exciting things that will add so much to the whole explainability as well, but also more, especially for real-time intelligent agents. If you think about real-time learning, not the current situation where it's still offline learning and online application or inference. Andreas, we talked about, I think I had a second part of the question where I talked about why are partnerships so important in this age of intelligent agents and Gen AI. If you can maybe address that, but then also with that, how can partners help accelerate companies, enterprises, the whole AI initiative, the AI-driven digital transformation as well? If you can tackle those two questions.
So to me, that comes down to time to value in many, many examples, especially in business, right? Timing is critical. And if you think that you still have to do the change management, as I said earlier, of bringing people along, explaining what does this do, how does it work differently? Yes, you've worked on this task for the last 10 or 12 years, but here's how it works differently and better and faster now. And again, to Alberto's point, it's a lot about building trust. To me, those are the big themes that you need to get right in your transformation. But where partnerships come in is helping you get there faster, achieving that time to value faster, because your trusted providers, they're doing the same thing, right? They are embedding AI in their products that you use on a daily basis. So go take a look there. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. You don't need to build the next resume matching tool or job description generation tool or copywriting tool.
Yeah.
There are plenty of vendors out there that do that. On the other hand, when you look at more platform type capabilities, I mean, hardly a week goes by without a vendor, a large player, a small player coming out with a new model and the next iteration, right? Yesterday, we saw at Amazon's Amazon Web Services reInvent the launch of the new Nova models that I think very few people had on their radar. So there's another alternative for you if you're building on AWS to use these models as well, or use them through your other providers like SAP and the recent partnership there as well. So to me, that's where partnerships come in, to use this basic technology. And if you build using that basic technology, you still need to figure out, what is my business case? What is the business problem I'm solving? How do I figure out what are the right KPIs and get my stakeholders aligned and all of that? But you don't need to build your large language model, at least not most companies. So that's my take on partnerships and how they can help you evolve.
Brilliant. Yeah. Now I've got this, I think the Industrial Data Corporation's got this 5 pillars that they talk about: intent, strategy, and then data, technology, processes, and people. We do AI-driven digital transformation. And things that you just said there fits in beautifully with that kind of framework. Maria, I'm thinking about, well, you're AI lead at SAP as well. So what are the key questions companies are asking you around AI? And and this is the first part of the question. The second part is, if they want to implement solutions, is AI something driven from an IT perspective, or do you see central investments?
Yeah. Well, the questions really there is a huge variety. So from where should I start? You know, from quick wins to persuade the team not to be afraid, to even understand maybe they've been already doing some data science. So AI is just the new step. You don't need to climb Mount Everest. You're already somewhere on the way. Then also, what value does it bring me? You know, to be able to calculate how many minutes per day do I spend doing something, and how much time can I spend or mediate risk. And then in the end, how do I scale? So really industrialization of AI as opposed to just POCs. And then to your second question, the setups again differ from some companies have chief AI officers, or sometimes CDOs or CTOs playing this role, or out of IT. Other companies, or also at the same time, introduce the role of AI champions in the business units across departments, so that the ideas can grow from there. Because procurement, finance experts, they know their business the best, and they can, knowing basics of AI, come up with great cases.
Fantastic. I think we're running close to the final part of this panel discussion. But Alberto, I want to ask you, and hopefully, Andreas, there will be enough time to ask you also another question. Alberto, what are the major limiting kind of factors in the adoption of AI? So we know that companies, I think it's easier now, obviously, adoption of AI, because on the board level, executive level, you see more of that happening. But what are the limiting factors, and what is the respective mitigation strategies? I see we are over time, so if you can just make it short and sweet.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of them have already been mentioned by my fellow panelists here. Yeah. Adoption comes with trust. New business models that are also based on trust, we could call them trust as a service, right? And upskilling. I think these are the three important. On the one hand, limitations today, but also opportunities for tomorrow.
Okay, brilliant. And I think we're over time, so we need to conclude here. So thank you very much, panelists. You were all awesome here. We miss Ingrid now, but she made a valuable contribution. The lead, I'm going to give it over to you. And once again, thank you to all the panelists. The insights have been brilliant. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you also from our side. This is exactly how we like our panel discussion, packed with insights from as many perspectives as possible. So many thanks, dear Jacques, again, for moderating this brilliant panel. And thanks also to Ingrid, Andreas, Maria, and Alberto Giovanni. Stay safe. And dear audience, we got a lot of questions. We will handle this over social media, and we will tag you all so you can get into the conversation. I think it's very, very valuable. So have a great festive season. Take care, and really hope to see you soon also in person. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Well, incredible how fast time flies. And I know I always say that, but it is always the same. It's probably something very, very human. So, dear audience, we arrived at our last session, our grande finale of today's conference. With all the today's learnings and your own experience, dear audience, we want to give you some valuable insights about scaling applied AI for long-term growth. We've heard already a few things. So talkers talk and builders build. And this is what drives us and our cognitive community. Dear audience, please welcome with me our dear friend and a long Swiss Cognitive Fellow, Behzadi. You are the CTO and Chief AI Officer at Sportradar, transforming sports analytics through innovative AI. Previously, you co-founded groundbreaking technology like Google Assistant and Google Lens during your tenure at Google. With over 20 years of experience, your work defines the future of AI. Welcome, Behshad. I'm super thrilled to have you in a personal interview, and I feel very privileged. So let's start with one of your quotes that actually we've heard already this afternoon. Don't treat AI like a hammer, assuming every problem is a nail. So focus on this problem first and not at the technology. Behshad, you have been the co-founder of AI-first products like Google Assistant and Lens, as mentioned already, and been leading applied generative AI for Google Cloud and now driving tech and AI at Sportradar. But you are saying don't use AI for everything, just for the sake of AI. What do you mean by this?
Hi, everyone. Hi, Dalit, and super happy to be here. No, of course, what we have seen throughout the last year is that AI has become much more accessible and everyone wants to try to get benefits of that. And that comes with the side that, people are doing too many things about it. Many companies are trying few hundreds of use cases together. And sometimes we focus actually on just doing AI as opposed to focusing on the problem itself. What problems are we trying to solve? What benefits is this bringing for the user? What is the product aspect and so on? Sometimes companies have been building chatbots, which chatbots is just not the right interface for that particular problem. So that's the main thing. And sometimes for simpler problems, for problems which you just don't need to use AI, you end up using AI. And an abundance of using all these AI small solutions in a company or in a solution is hurting quite often, the overall outcome. So that's more or less what that's referring to.
Thank you, and I think it nailed it. The hammer nailed the nail. So besides being the CTO, you are also Chief AI Officer, which is the hottest new C-suite job all over the world. Tell us a bit more about what a Chief AI Officer does. Do we all need to have one?
Yeah, so certainly this is a new addition to the AI, to the C-suite roles. And I think the main idea here is that if you want to go big and want to get, the most benefits out of AI, you do need, like any other problems that you want to go big, you want a leader to oversee things. So that's the high level idea. It doesn't need to be called Chief AI Officer, but you need to have a head of AI or head of GenAI in your companies in general. I think it's good to be senior enough so that you can sponsor things, so that you can, in an open-minded way, try to sometimes change things. Sometimes change management is needed in this case. And a CAIO would help with the AI strategy and AI vision, tries to, a little bit of governance, because you don't want too much of governance. Obviously, you want innovation to happen here. But at the same time, for example, when I joined, Sportradar, there was, again, another 300 ideas here. And I said, let's focus on these 5, so that's basically, a part which an AI lead is doing in the company. And then there's some culture and change management, which is needed when you want to sometimes change things, which we have been doing it for many years in certain way. And now you want to do it very different way. So that's parts of the roles of Chief AI Officers. But I would say that, the main point is to just have someone in charge of those responsibilities.
I would like to remain a little bit on that, because one thing that Andy and I see as external C-suite AI challengers is that often companies are defining an AI or a chief digital officer, and then they think we're done, we have someone who solved it. Perhaps we can emphasize a little bit more on that, because this is something that we always tell the companies when we work with them together. It's not all about having a CDO or the CAIO. It's really about onboarding the whole organization. What can you tell them?
For sure. I guess, you do want to educate, first of all, the overall organization. You want to have the setup in a way that they actually can, their company can benefit from all of the, the AI developments. But you also do need to stay up to date with the trends. So this is one of the fastest changing revolutions which is happening. So the best solution of 6 months ago and a year ago and 2 years ago are not the best one today anymore. So you do want to have basically that investment that is watching around, making sure that, we're doing the right thing and so on. So this is, these types of things are an ongoing manner, and it's really should be, spread across, the company. There's a culture aspect here. It's not just to have that person, helping with the governance here, but for sure, I'm on your camp in this opinion.
So talking about trends, what are some of the coolest AI tech progress that you have seen? I mean, you saw so many things, probably most of what happened here you saw and probably not the audience. So can you share some with us, please?
Yeah, so I mean, if you talk about, let's say 2024, I guess that for me personally, because I have been working on voice assistants for a good chunk of my life, and it has been really good to see these end-to-end voice experiences. These are experiences that, there is no latency in response. It's really the ideal experiences of you are talking to an AI in a way that you can interrupt, you can diverge a conversation in all different ways, and it all sounds very, very human conversation. So I personally like that very much. Certainly the video quality generation during 2024 reached a level that we all, can very well imagine what is the future of video generations and so on. In the technological side, I'm very excited about the context size of this large language model to grow, because that enables lots of more application, which was not possible before. But I'm maybe more than anything else in 2024, I was excited about the Nobel Prizes for AI, because I felt that there is a really it's a confirmation that this is not just a hype, but this is actually and this is not just a the impact is not just an economic impact, but this is really the impact for science, the impact for the AI for good. This is we're going to see the impact on healthcare and the drug discovery and so on. So those recognitions that 3 of my ex-colleagues get Nobel Prize this year for their work on AI, chemistry and physics Nobel. So that was a very interesting moments for me.
Indeed. Now looking forward, what do you see for 2025 that excites you most, or you expect?
Yeah, no, I think I'm very excited about the AI agents. So AI agents would mean that the AI brains, which they can understand, they can plan, they can execute. So that's a really next level. So we had a beginning of it this year, but next year is going to be for real, and I think this could be very powerful. And we will be seeing agents talking to agents in more bigger scale. So that the result of all of that is that harder problems and harder reasonings can be solved with AI. So that's going to be significant, in my opinion, next year. I think we will be seeing a significantly bigger adoption of AI adoptions in production. So we will see that that enterprises are using that for efficiency improvement and so on. So that's going to be pretty big. I don't know whether it will happen in 2025 or later, but the video productions, for longer, like full movies generation, I think this is something that we will be seeing, in the future, certainly. And again, I personally think that, the AI impact in healthcare is very big, and it might take, again, multi-years, not necessarily just in 2025, but that's where AI will be saving lives, and a big number of, will save life, from diagnosis to drug developments to care and everything. So this is really also going to be big. But from pure technology point of view, AI agents is my top choice if I had to choose one.
Thank you. Well, we discussed a lot about healthcare, and I'm totally with you, but I would like actually to take the advantage having you in the sports industry now, and Sportradar being a world-leading sport technology analytic company. What excites you most there? What are your expectations within the sports industry? Because what I always think is very interesting, if we listen to other industries and we're thinking kind of out of the box, we can still adapt them to other industries.
That's right. So I think AI is certainly has been used in sports industry for quite a long time. Computer vision, trying to analyzing what's happening in the games, for performance analysis, for data collection, and so on, has been happening. That's not a new thing. But what I'm mostly excited about, and what we're at Sportradar are really excited about, is this combination of the hyper intelligent types of brains that we can have with AI. Think of it as a brain which understands every aspect of a sport and every aspect of any other sport instances which happened in the past. Then they combine that with hyper immersive experiences, which basically means that you can overlay all types of extra insights or animation that could help to consume that sport game better and have it in a very personalized way. So I might see the game in a commentatory which is in French and it's biased towards preferring France to win, and so that's because I know I'm a France fan, of course. So that is those details, and the fact that whether I like a particular player more, sometimes maybe the focuses, the highlights, and so on. So I would say the way we consume sports has not really changed in a big manner in the past many years, and we're very excited on Sportradar to try to play a central role in pushing that and challenging that and bringing that to the next level. So it's really all about fan engagement. How can we have experiences for these fans? And I guess not a surprise, but the number of these fans are not small. The top sports have between 2 to 3 billion fans in the world. Football and basketball and tennis and so on. These are very, very, there's a serious number of fans there. So being able to use GenAI and AI to make the next level of experiences for these fans is what keeps us very excited and motivated at Sportradar. I am not hearing you, Dalit, now. No, I don't hear you. We could have used AI to read your lips, but somehow I'm not hearing you at this point.
No, it's okay. So I also hope that we will be able also to increase fairness in sports. I think this is something that has a big impact.
We actually have a big investment on responsible sports in some sense, to really trying to help on one hand both the judgments aspects of the referee jobs, help the referees to judge better, but also preventing all of the match fixes, fixed matches, and so on. So this is really a big focus for us at Sportradar. So very good point.
Where I must say I didn't thought of the referees now more. Sports about the fans, how they treat each other, but this is another point. We talked about ethical AI. It's also about ethical human. Well, we're coming to the end, and I would still, it is a difficult question, but I know I can challenge you on that. I mean, as we get into, what advice do you have for the companies to focus on 2025? How should they maximize their chances to win with AI?
Yeah, no, I think that's a good one. And I think there is many things which can get, I see it, and I see the timer going down. I would say, focus really on a smaller number of things still. Have a combination of things, not just quick wins. Many companies just go for quick wins. This is a big technology. You want to go for big wins. And so make sure that you're taking bigger risks also here. Be aware of the trends which is happening. That's very important. And again, as we said in the beginning, don't try to use AI as a hammer. Have a small team which is experimenting with things. Try to copy others if necessary. There is no shame. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. So try to build what's necessary to be built by you, and everything else, given the very active industry that we're seeing, you can try to get from the others. And I try to respect the time, which is reaching 0. So at this point I stop, but I could talk a few minutes for things to be aware of.
This is our Swiss part, isn't it, Behshad?
Exactly.
Hey, thanks a lot, dear Behshad, for this brilliant end of year and end of conference sessions. And we will definitely remain in the conversation, and I really hope that we might even see each other before Christmas this year. I hope that we also inspired our audience with all this information. There are actually no limits what we can do, but we have to set the limits to us. So, Behshad, thanks a lot. Take care and see you soon.
Thank you so much. I wish for you, Andy, and everyone else happy holidays and great holidays with your loved ones. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. You too. Well, it is, sorry, I still know I'm not an avatar because this wouldn't happen. So, dear audience, we came to the end. I'm very much inspired, and I would just give you some insights of today's conference of the AI Trajectory 2025, emphasize the critical need to balance rapid AI advancement with safety governance and human-centric approaches. The key takeaways, including scaling AI responsibility, integrating human empathy in decision-making, and fostering trust through bias audits and privacy prioritizations. AI's potential in healthcare, tourism, and beyond was highlighted, showcasing its ability to enhance efficiency and decision-making. Collaboration across regions and disciplines, along with education and transparency, is essential to reduce fear and enable innovation. As AI models evolve closer to human-like interaction, business must rethink processes to full embrace this transformative technology. Amid these remarkable advancements, one theme remains central: the indissoluble role of human responsibility and emotional intelligence. As leaders, developers, and users of AI, it is our duty to ensure that these tools serve humans' highest good. It is our deepest wish that all of the people out there building AI tools and devices are as respectful and inclusive as all of our panelists and experts. Thank you all for being here and for your unwavering commitment to advancing AI responsibility. At Swiss Cognitive, we firmly believe that emotional intelligence must complement AI. The way we design, deploy, and integrate AI should always reflect our commitment to fairness, inclusivity, transparency, and responsibility. This belief is the foundation of everything that we do at Swiss Cognitive. Andy and I founded this platform with a clear mission to bridge the worlds of business and technology. We wanted to create a space where innovation meets accountability and collaboration sparks meaningful changes with purpose and integrity. Emotional intelligence is a precious gift. Never fail to listen to your heart before you judge. Dear AI enthusiasts, dear friends around the world, from the bottom of our hearts, Andy and I and the whole Swiss Cognitive team wish you a peaceful festive season filled with love and respect. Thrilled to engage with all of you again in 2025. Thank you. Bye.